The Atomic Impulse. Life Winning. Now, unleash your inner power. Chapter 1. Effort Enthusiasts. I like my job and am good at it, but it sure grinds me down sometimes, and the last thing I need to take home is a headache. Anacin TV Commercial. On a cold, rainy October morning, Edward Kennedy stood by a factory gate seeking votes for the U.S. Senate. As he greeted one elderly worker and asked for his vote, the employee looked at Kennedy and said, "I understand you never worked a day in your life." Before Kennedy had a chance to reply, the worker added, "Well, let me tell you, you haven't missed a damn thing." What does work mean to you? Do you think of work as an activity that takes more from you than it gives? Do you see the distinction between play and work as the difference between pleasure and pain? Do you live to work, or do you work to live? Regardless of your answers, one thing is certain. Work is here to stay. By work, I mean the human expenditure of time and energy, both physical and mental, to complete a task. This definition is broad, encompassing the overwhelming majority of your waking hours. When you brush your teeth, plan a vacation, drive to work, or perform household or occupational chores, you are at work. You might work at being a better doctor, lawyer, teacher, tennis player, lover, or cook. Work, like death and taxes, is an all-encompassing and inescapable reality of life. Now for the good news. The forthcoming pages contain a comprehensive set of simple but powerful ideas and techniques that will enable you to conquer your personal energy crisis. Do you ever feel frustrated and exhausted at the end of the day because you have nothing to show for your efforts? I'll show you some simple ideas that will make every day count and leave you with time and energy to spare. Do you find yourself rushing to meet deadlines and constantly hassled by an unending stream of crises? I'll give you some ways to beat the deadline hassle and cut down on your firefighting activities. Is your life one big mass of commitments that leave you feeling confused and immobilized? I'll show you how to organize those commitments, eliminate many, and give yourself a sense of direction. Do you find yourself feeling guilty about what doesn't get done and worried about what may not get done? I'll convince you that these are useless emotions that only cause you to work more and accomplish less. Do you find yourself not tackling important projects because they seem overwhelming or unpleasant? I'll explain how you can gain momentum to tackle these projects and follow through to successful completion. Are you compulsive about having to do everything yourself? I'll give you some tips on successful delegating. In working with others, do you often find the going rough due to communication breakdowns and unnecessary conflicts? I'll point out some common pitfalls of communication and conflict and recommend means of avoiding them. Do you find your work hampered by an unending stream of interruptions such as meetings, visitors, and telephone calls? I'll give you some pointers for minimizing them. Are you drowning in a sea of information and paper overload, as most of us are? I'll show you how to quiet the paper tiger down to a mild roar. To be sure, this is a large order, but I am confident that you will benefit from many, if not all, of the ideas contained here. And the best part is that they are simple, proven, and immediately applicable. Effectiveness, the key to it all. As you read this, you may be thinking that this is a book written by some efficiency nut who wants to turn you into an unfeeling, unthinking automaton. Nothing could be further from the truth. All too often, many of us confuse effectiveness with efficiency. Being effective means choosing the right goals from a set of alternatives and reaching them. Efficiency, on the other hand, assumes the goals as given and proper and proceeds to find the best means of achieving them. Efficiency is doing the job right, whereas effectiveness is doing the right job. In a nutshell, effectiveness means results. Both are valuable concepts, but in my mind, effectiveness is far more important. What's your time worth? See Figure 1. Benjamin Franklin told us that time is money, and in the business sense, this is true. Time is like money in that it is measurable and you can't take it with you. However, as a resource, time has unique properties. We are forced to use time at a constant rate. The inventory is being depleted at an amount of 60 minutes per hour, 24 hours per day, 168 hours per week. Time is irreplaceable. We are all given a finite amount of time, but the irony is that we never know how much we have until it's all gone. Few of us admit to having enough time, but all of us have all that there is. That is the paradox of time. Time is truly our most precious resource. How old are you? How many more years do you expect to live? When you die, how long will you be dead? I ask these questions not to depress you but rather to impress you with the briefness of our earthly existence. Waste your money, and you're only out of money, but waste your time, and you've lost a part of your life. Few of us would knowingly take half of our take-home pay and spend it on something that was of absolutely no use to us or anyone else. However, the vast majority of us spend at least 50% of each day in various pastimes that provide no earthly use or satisfaction for anyone, including ourselves. We literally waste away half of our lives and do it in oblivious indifference. Coming to grips with our mortality can help us or hurt us. If we choose to let it hurt us, we can wallow in the futility and tragedy of life. We can conclude that life isn't worth living. Or, as most of us do, we can fool ourselves into believing that our time is infinite, that there will always be tomorrow to fulfill those lifetime dreams and wishes. Fortunately, there are a few of us who deal with our mortality in a more constructive way. These people say to themselves, "I'm not going to be here forever, so I'd better make the most of every minute, hour, day, and year." They view life as a brief but wonderful experience to be enjoyed to the fullest. They live their lives for themselves because they accept the reality that their life is all they have. They accept the responsibility for their own feelings, triumphs, and misfortunes. As a result of this take-charge attitude, these persons realize the necessity to plan their lives for maximum personal satisfaction. To make the most of your future time and energy, it is imperative that you devote some of your present time and energy to planning. Without sound plans to increase our personal effectiveness, most of us tend to drift and stagnate. Some people believe that planning is merely deciding what to do in the future. However, a better definition of planning is deciding what you have to do in order to have a future. The investment theory of work. Simply put, the investment theory of work states that you must be willing to sacrifice some of your present time, energy, and short-range satisfactions in order to work less and accomplish more later on. There is nothing new or earth-shaking about the investment theory of work, and all of us have used it from time to time. When you take a part-time job in addition to your regular duties to save for that new house or car, or when you go back to school for additional or advanced training, you are applying the investment theory. Most of us, however, don't rely on it systematically as a working principle in our lives. The reason for this is what I call the instant everything lifestyle. This has become a prevailing norm in our society. Pick up any newspaper, turn on the radio or television, or drive down any suburban highway, and voices from the land of instant everything will announce their readiness to satisfy your every need. Are you hungry or thirsty? There are fast food restaurants and express checkout supermarkets by the score. Dislike the way you are? There are literally thousands of establishments crying to make you taller, shorter, lighter, heavier, sexier, healthier, more beautiful, and smell better. Want to change your mood? There are pills and potions to pick you up, bring you down, keep you awake, and put you to sleep. The list could go on endlessly. It's the incredible miracle of 20th century living. One of the problems with instant everything is that it lulls us into neglecting the future. All that matters is the urgency of satisfying present needs. However, the future is not instant. It runs on a very precise schedule and takes its time getting here. To be sure, tomorrow is promised to no one, but it is also a fact that most of us will be here when it arrives. Fail to control your future, and it will control you. Your use of time and energy will be dictated by circumstances rather than by yourself. The relationship of you to time is always one of master to slave. There is no middle ground. The only question is which role you choose to play. Many of the ideas suggested in this book will at first be unfamiliar and uncomfortable, and involve a greater initial investment of work than old comfortable habits you have grown accustomed to. However, as the Queen told Alice in Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking-Glass, it's a poor sort of memory that only works backwards. As your two-way memory looks forward, you will realize the rewards are indeed greater accomplishment coupled with less devotion of your time and energy. I happen to be one of those people who believe that happiness and success don't just happen to someone. They happen when opportunity meets preparation. Those who succeed do so because they were willing to invest in the groundwork and were prepared when the tide of good fortune rolled in. Working smart requires an investment of thought, self-discipline, and hard work, and the rewards are greater personal satisfaction and greater productivity with less stress and less effort. A word of warning: old habits are extremely hard to break. Your first reaction to some of these new ideas may be to try them for a while and then give them up in favor of the old ways. Are you drowning in a sea of information and paper overload, as most of us are? I'll show you how to quiet the paper tiger down to a mild roar. To be sure, this is a large order, but I am confident that you will benefit from many, if not all, of the ideas contained here. And the best part is that they are simple, proven, and immediately applicable. Effectiveness, the key to it all. As you read this, you may be thinking that this is a book written by some efficiency nut who wants to turn you into an unfeeling, unthinking automaton. Nothing could be further from the truth. All too often, many of us confuse effectiveness with efficiency. Being effective means choosing the right goals from a set of alternatives and reaching them. Efficiency, on the other hand, assumes the goals as given and proper and proceeds to find the best means of achieving them. Efficiency is doing the job right, whereas effectiveness is doing the right job. In a nutshell, effectiveness means results. Both are valuable concepts, but in my mind, effectiveness is far more important. What's your time worth? See Figure 1. Benjamin Franklin told us that time is money, and in the business sense, this is true. Time is like money in that it is measurable and you can't take it with you. However, as a resource, time has unique properties. We are forced to use time at a constant rate. The inventory is being depleted at an amount of 60 minutes per hour, 24 hours per day, 168 hours per week. Time is irreplaceable. We are all given a finite amount of time, but the irony is that we never know how much we have until it's all gone. Few of us admit to having enough time, but all of us have all that there is. That is the paradox of time. Time is truly our most precious resource. How old are you? How many more years do you expect to live? When you die, how long will you be dead? I ask these questions not to depress you, but rather to impress you with the briefness of our earthly existence. Waste your money, and you're only out of money, but waste your time, and you've lost a part of your life. Few of us would knowingly take half of our take-home pay and spend it on something that was of absolutely no use to us or anyone else. However, the vast majority of us spend at least 50% of each day in various pastimes that provide no earthly use or satisfaction for anyone, including ourselves. We literally waste away half of our lives and do it in oblivious indifference. Coming to grips with our mortality can help us or hurt us. If we choose to let it hurt us, we can wallow in the futility and tragedy of life. We can conclude that life isn't worth living. Or, as most of us do, we can fool ourselves into believing that our time is infinite, that there will always be tomorrow to fulfill those lifetime dreams and wishes. Fortunately, there are a few of us who deal with our mortality in a more constructive way. These people say to themselves, I'm not going to be here forever, so I'd better make the most of every minute, hour, day, and year. They view life as a brief but wonderful experience to be enjoyed to the fullest. They live their lives for themselves because they accept the reality that their life is all they have. They accept the responsibility for their own feelings, triumphs, and misfortunes. As a result of this take-charge attitude, these persons realize the necessity to plan their lives for maximum personal satisfaction. To make the most of your future time and energy, it is imperative that you devote some of your present time and energy to planning. Without sound plans to increase our personal effectiveness, most of us tend to drift and stagnate. Some people believe that planning is merely deciding what to do in the future. However, a better definition of planning is deciding what you have to do in order to have a future. The investment theory of work. Simply put, the investment theory of work states that you must be willing to sacrifice some of your present time, energy, and short-range satisfactions in order to work less and accomplish more later on. There is nothing new or earth-shaking about the investment theory of work, and all of us have used it from time to time. When you take a part-time job in addition to your regular duties to save for that new house or car, or when you go back to school for additional or advanced training, you are applying the investment theory. Most of us, however, don't rely on it systematically as a working principle in our lives. The reason for this is what I call the instant everything lifestyle. This has become a prevailing norm in our society. Pick up any newspaper, turn on the radio or television, or drive down any suburban highway, and voices from the land of instant everything will announce their readiness to satisfy your every need. Are you hungry or thirsty? There are fast food restaurants and express checkout supermarkets by the score. Dislike the way you are? There are literally thousands of establishments trying to make you taller, shorter, lighter, heavier, sexier, healthier, more beautiful, and smell better. Want to change your mood? There are pills and potions to pick you up, bring you down, keep you awake, and put you to sleep. The list could go on endlessly. It's the incredible miracle of 20th century living. One of the problems with instant everything is that it lulls us into neglecting the future. All that matters is the urgency of satisfying present needs. However, the future is not instant. It runs on a very precise schedule and takes its time getting here. To be sure, tomorrow is promised to no one, but it is also a fact that most of us will be here when it arrives. Fail to control your future, and it will control you. Your use of time and energy will be dictated by circumstances rather than by yourself. The relationship of you to time is always one of master to slave. There is no middle ground. The only question is which role you choose to play. Many of the ideas suggested in this book will at first be unfamiliar and uncomfortable, and involve a greater initial investment of work than old comfortable habits you have grown accustomed to. However, as the Queen told Alice in Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass, it's a poor sort of memory that only works backwards. As your two-way memory looks forward, you will realize the rewards are indeed greater accomplishment coupled with less devotion of your time and energy. I happen to be one of those people who believe that happiness and success don't just happen to someone. They happen when opportunity meets preparation. Those who succeed do so because they were willing to invest in the groundwork and were prepared when the tide of good fortune rolled in. Working smart requires an investment of thought, self-discipline, and hard work, and the rewards are greater personal satisfaction and greater productivity with less stress and less effort. A word of warning: old habits are extremely hard to break. Your first reaction to some of these new ideas may be to try them for a while and then give them up in favor of the old ways. It's always easier to do nothing, but I suggest you treat the development of personal productivity as a permanent behavioral change in your lifestyle. That will require patience, self-discipline, and a determination to succeed. Use your two-way memory and realize that the process of reprogramming yourself for greater personal productivity is going to be an investment with a great payoff down the road. Let's start looking at some investments that will save you time, energy, and aggravation. Chapter 2. Life's Ultimate Game Plan. If you really know what things you want out of life, it's amazing how opportunities will come to enable you to carry them out. John M. Goddard. Human beings are naturally goal-seeking creatures. When we have no goals, we live an aimless and purposeless life. The next time someone tells you they feel life is not worthwhile or that they are bored, take a closer look. What they are really saying is that they have no worthwhile problems to solve, obstacles to conquer, or goals to achieve. Developing a successful plan for effectiveness begins with goal setting. You can make a very good case that goals and the sense of purpose that accompanies them are necessary for survival. Actuaries report high incidences of poor health and death shortly after the mandatory retirement age. After 40 to 50 years in a job or career, it is understandable that someone feels stripped of his sense of direction and value when retirement is thrust upon him. Many of us reach retirement totally unprepared, with no other goals to pursue, and as a result, we rust out rather than wear out. Contrast the retirement syndrome to the fact that many creative people, such as artists and composers, often enjoy much greater than average longevity. Many live well into their 80s and 90s, and their final years are often the most productive. Unlike most of us, they die with their boots on. Am I saying that artists tend to live longer because they are more creative? That's not the point at all. Rather, I believe the artist's longevity is attributable to an unending and uninterrupted sense of purpose and direction. To these people, there is always another symphony to compose or canvas to fill. We can't all be artists, but we all need and can have goals. Of course, we all have some goals. However, the overwhelming majority of them are vague and poorly conceived. Few of us ever undertake the task of setting definite goals for our lives. Doing this would greatly increase the odds of working less and accomplishing more. Until we decide what we want, we aren't very likely to get it. In the meantime, we flounder around working more and accomplishing less by frittering away our time and energy aimlessly. Guidelines for setting goals. Most of us recognize the importance of goals. However, when it comes to the task of setting specific goals, we back off or procrastinate. We feel uneasy about it. Planning our life seems like such an onerous task that most of us simply throw up our hands and say, in effect, "I just don't know where to begin." Here is a program that will provide the structure you need to get you started on your way to meaningful goal setting. If you follow these instructions and guidelines, the task of goal setting will become far less burdensome. In fact, you will probably enjoy it. An exercise in self-discovery. It makes little sense to decide what you want out of life until you have a good idea of who you are. This is why the following self-discovery exercise precedes goal setting. Once you have established a sense of who you are, you will be in a better position to set meaningful goals. Take 10 index cards. On one side of each card, write, "I am." Now take about 10 minutes and complete each statement differently. Work rapidly, as the objective of this exercise is to discover your true feelings about yourself. Don't censor any answers that come to your mind. Write them down. Answers such as gambler, alcoholic, or ping-pong fiend are no less valid than answers like human being, parent, student, wife, homeowner, or sports fan. You may find you need more than 10 cards. That's fine. Use as many as you need. Some people find it difficult to come up with 10 answers. This is generally due to censoring their thoughts. If you encounter this problem, perform this exercise where you will be alone and undisturbed. Most of all, remember that there are no right or wrong answers. The key is spontaneity. When you have completed all 10 statements, read them over, arrange them in order of importance, and number them. Then turn over the first card and complete the following statement. This "I am" is first because. Do the same for the remaining cards, in order. A case study in goal setting, the Denny Had story. Denny had, despite being financially successful as a stockbroker, found that the nature of the work didn't fit his temperament. He longed for something more tangible and felt frustrated by the inability to control his own destiny. Denny overcame his frustrations by realizing that only he and divine providence could control his destiny. An avid amateur radio operator since childhood, Denny decided to form the Dentron Radio Company to manufacture and sell equipment for ham radio operators. In April 1974, Denny quit his job, sold the family cars to acquire capital, borrowed heavily on credit cards, and began making amateur radio equipment in his basement. Dentron was born. Many of Denny's friends and relatives watched with sorrow and dismay, feeling certain that he had lost his mind. On August 28, 1974, Dentron Radio recorded its first sale. In April 1975, Dentron moved from Denny's basement to the Dentron plant in Twinsburg, Ohio. By the end of 1975, Dentron had grossed over $1 million in sales. Today, Denny Had is the owner and president of a growing multi-million-dollar manufacturing and marketing operation that sells products to amateur radio enthusiasts and governments throughout the world. Boundless energy and enthusiasm for life characterize the Denny Had of today. The Denny Had method for achieving goals is simple. Once you decide on what you want, put on the blinders and move full speed ahead. Don't listen to anyone else because they will only tell you why something can't be done, says Denny. Not too surprisingly, his ulcer vanished years ago. Examples of different types of goals. Listed below are several examples of each type of goal. These examples are for illustration purposes only and are not meant to imply that any of these should or should not be your goals. If you think of a goal that falls into more than one category, write it down on each appropriate card. A goal appearing several times is usually a good one because it indicates a wide range of potential satisfaction to you. Career goals. Become president of the company by age 40. Get promoted this year. Find another career more in line with my tastes and aptitudes. Open my own restaurant. Get transferred to the home office. Become the top salesperson in my district. Get my boss's job. Get a job with my company's competitor. Quit work and become a college professor. Pass the CPA examination. Personal relationship goals. Devote 2 hours each day to getting to know my children better. Take at least one escape weekend every 3 months with my spouse. Try to meet at least one new person each day. Convert a former adversary into a friend. Fall in love. Get married. Get a divorce. Cultivate one new, close friendship each month. Learn to remember names. Evict my mother-in-law. Recreational goals. Find a better way to relax each day. Go on a safari. Attend an orgy. Get an amateur radio license and talk to people around the world. Buy a boat. Write a novel. Take a trip around the world. Raise Great Danes. Sleep late on Saturdays. Watch the sunset. Personal growth goals. Learn one new word each day. Take a speed reading course. Learn to make better use of my time and energy. Attend a lecture on something I know little or nothing about each month. Learn to control my temper. Take up conversational French. Go away to college. Join the Marines. Spend a night on Skid Row or in jail. Volunteer for charity work. Material goals. Be financially independent in 5 years. Buy a house this year. Get a sports car. Buy the best quadraphonic stereo. Buy a motorcycle. Buy a yacht and live on it. Acquire rental property. Add another bathroom to the house. Earn enough money to pay off the mortgage. Social goals. Join the country club. Make the dean's list. Graduate with honors. Run for political office. Wear expensive clothes. Move to an impressive neighborhood. Throw formal dinner parties for important people. Be captain of the football team. Be chosen employee of the month. Appear on radio or television as an expert. Be sure to refer back to your self-discovery cards as you begin to write down your goals. They will be a great help in pointing the way toward which goals will be most meaningful. If, for example, one of your self-discovery cards says, "I am a father," logical goals might be to set aside more time each week for getting better acquainted with your children or adding a family recreation room to your house. If one of your cards says, "Golfer," saving for a new set of clubs or resolving to lower your score by a few strokes by the end of the year would be potential goals. The idea is to use the self-discovery cards as a guide to which things in life are most meaningful to you. The reason for putting goals in writing is twofold. First, writing goals helps you identify more clearly what you want. Most of us never write down our goals. We are simply content to think about them. However, thoughts are fleeting, and if our goals are merely thoughts, we run a high risk of having little more than daydreams. Written goals are less likely to be forgotten or lost in the shuffle. They are tangible and we are committed to achieving them. Secondly, putting goals in writing brings them closer to realization. The more vividly you can see, feel, and taste your goals in advance, the greater the probability of their accomplishment. Chapter 3. Master your chaos. Organizing is what you do before you do something so that when you do it, it's not all mixed up. Christopher Robin in A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh. In one of his films, W.C. Fields plays an executive whose desktop is a morass of clutter. In one scene, he returns to his desk to find that an efficiency expert has organized, rearranged, and streamlined it. The desktop is now a picture of neatness and efficiency, but Fields is frustrated. He can't find anything. So, he vigorously throws the neat stacks of paper up in the air, tossing them as a gourmet would a salad. Then he backs off, surveys the desktop with satisfaction, deftly reaches into the pileup, and pulls out the desired document. To fully appreciate the satire of that scene, we should place it in historical perspective. At the time Fields was in his glory, efficiency experts were preaching the gospel of organization. One of the cardinal sins of inefficiency was to have a desk with anything on top of it other than the immediate work at hand. A clear desk was heralded as the badge of efficiency and productivity. Today, we are less sure of this. Certainly, a life of organization is usually much more effective than one of chaos. Most of us could enhance our effectiveness with more organization. However, hard and fast rules are not the order of the day when it comes to organizing. This is what W.C. Fields was trying to tell us in the film. We all must organize to suit our own personality and the task at hand. As you plan your life, resist the temptation of becoming overly organized. It's an effectiveness killer. I had a friend in college who flunked out after one semester. The main reason was that he spent all of his study time reading various books on how to study and never got around to studying. The same problem can arise as you try to work smarter. Remember, these ideas are merely means to an end, and that end is to increase your lifetime effectiveness. Running around with a stopwatch and keeping a totally clear desk isn't going to accomplish what you want in life. Nevertheless, there are some good guidelines for organizing your life and your thoughts, and those are discussed in this chapter. If you practice these guidelines as guidelines rather than as hard and fast rules, you will find they will aid you in getting the most from your time and effort. With that thought in mind, let's look at a few of them. Chapter 4. Precision Tools for Perfect Results. Thomas Carlyle once remarked, "Man is a tool-using animal. Without tools he is nothing. With tools he is all." Those are words worth remembering. How many times have you labored at an unsuccessful activity only to find out that having a particular tool could have saved you a great deal of time, energy, and frustration? This type of experience is usually most apparent to us when we are trying to repair the family car or something around the house. This is because we tend to think of tools as tangible instruments, as many of them are. However, to make the most of this guideline, we have to use the word tool in a much broader context. A tool is anything you use to help you achieve your goals. No matter what your goals are or what activities you pursue, all of them involve tools. If you are an accountant, your tools include the obvious pencils, papers, and calculators, as well as your CPA certificate and your practical knowledge. If you work in an office, the office itself with its desk, chair, and floor space is a tool. Other examples of less obvious tools are automobiles, statistical tables, newspapers, foreign languages, and interviewing techniques. The list is endless. Before setting out to perform a task or achieve a goal, stop and ask yourself, what are the necessary tools to complete the task successfully, and do I have them? If you don't have the proper tools, first consider getting someone else to do the job. Your time, energy, and expenses may be greatly reduced by employing someone else. However, if it's something only you can do, make an effort to first equip yourself with the best tools available. The difference between wise men and fools is often found in their choice of tools. Organize your workspace. Consider the environment in which you will be performing the task. Organizing your workspace is largely a personal matter that depends on your own tastes and the job to be done. However, there are several basic factors to keep in mind. Location. If you are fortunate enough to choose your workspace, choose one that is conducive to performing the task. If the job requires concentration, look for a quiet, private place. On the other hand, if you are opening your own business, choose a well-traveled location where potential customers have easy access to your establishment. Space. After you have chosen the proper work location, measure how much space you have to work with. Most of us usually find we have less than we want. It helps to know what space is available before furnishing it with the necessary tools. Easy access to the tools you use frequently. Make a list of the tools you use and rank them in order of how often you use them. Then you will have a guide to arranging them for easiest access. Refrain from cluttering your workspace with non-essential items. The moose head you had mounted after your last hunting trip to Canada may well be a sight worth seeing, but if it distracts you, you should place it somewhere else. Besides, it may occupy space where a more useful tool such as a memo board could be put. Comfort. Some people don't believe that workspaces should be designed for comfort. They are generally people who play the hard work tape or the work is inherently unpleasant tape. The fact is that discomfort is a distraction that serves only to hinder productivity. Why make things more difficult than they have to be? Life is already filled with more than ample supplies of discomforts, distractions, and frustrations. A comfortable workspace generally has the proper seating, ventilation, and lighting. If you work sitting down for long periods, choose a firm, comfortable chair that gives good back support. Try to find one comfortable enough that you won't have to get up every 10 minutes, but not so comfortable that you will fall asleep in it. To avoid eye strain, use indirect, uniform lighting. Adequate ventilation will help prevent unnecessary fatigue from stuffiness in the work environment. Which temperature range you work best in is a personal matter. However, be sure to locate your place in the workspace out of a draft. Master the art of deskmanship. A great many of us perform some or all of our work at a desk. As I mentioned earlier, a desk is a tool, and it is one of the most abused and misused tools. So, before delving into the application of this tool and how to get the most from it, we ought to consider what a desk is not. Specifically, a desk is not a place to conduct a paper drive. Judging from the many cluttered desktops I've seen, I'm convinced that paper recyclers would fare better if they raided desktops in office buildings rather than collecting old newspapers from the local shopping center. A storage depot for food, clothing, umbrellas, and other non-job sundries. I once moved into an office only to find I was sharing a desk with a colony of ants. It seems that my predecessor had willed me a large open bag of candy in the top right-hand drawer, but the clever little devils had beaten me to it. A place to stack items you want to remember. A German executive once remarked to Alec Mackenzie that desktops get stacked because we put things there we don't want to forget. The problem is that it works. Every time we look up, we see all these things we don't want to forget and our mind wanders, breaking our train of thought. With time, the stacks grow higher, and we forget what's in each one. So, we waste large amounts of time retrieving lost items and thinking about all those things we don't want to forget. Merrill Douglas, a time management consultant, tells of keeping a close time log on one executive who had a stacked desktop. The log revealed that he spent 2.5 hours per day looking for information on the top of his desk. A status symbol or a place to display awards, trophies, and the like. This mistaken use of desks causes us only to make desks larger than they have to be. With more surface area, we have more room for clutter, and somehow more clutter magically appears to fill up any available space. Now that we have discussed what a desk is not, let's look at what a desk is. It's a tool that expedites the receiving and processing of information and should be utilized with those objectives in mind. You may have a desk and not need one. Lawrence Apley, former president of the American Management Association, remarked that most desks only bury decisions. Some executives have thrown out their desks and declared their effectiveness has increased. They have replaced the standard office desk and chair with a lounge chair, clipboard, small writing table on casters, and file cabinets. Advocates of the deskless office report an improvement in face-to-face communication and an atmosphere of greater freedom. They no longer feel chained to a desk. Consider the possibility that you may not need a desk and, if you can get rid of it, try working without it and see what happens. How to reorganize your desk for effectiveness. Assuming you do need your desk, here are some guidelines for getting the most out of it. Clear it off. One of my associates saw a movie where an executive had a busy office with papers stacked on his desk, on the floor, on the windowsills, and on every available surface. He asked a friend, who was an efficiency expert, what was wrong with that picture. The friend replied, "Everything." The movie showed the executive gathering all of the papers, throwing them up in the air, and reorganizing them as a gourmet would a salad. When he was done, the executive was ready to resume his work. However, he didn't find what he wanted. Chapter 5. New Attitudes for Effectiveness. Attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. Winston Churchill. Life is shaped by attitude. How we spend our time and energy, particularly in work, reflects our attitudes. Our thoughts and feelings govern how hard we work and what we achieve. Throughout life, we adopt beliefs about ourselves, many of which are false, like old tapes repeating outdated messages. We've been conditioned to see feelings as mysterious and beyond control, and to equate real living with uncontrollable emotional highs. Responsibility for others' feelings and attitudes is also ingrained, burdening us unnecessarily. Better than you think. Undoubtedly, we underestimate ourselves. Self-evaluation often sells us short. Most people have untapped potential. Woody Hayes, renowned football coach, asserted that everyone exceeds their self-beliefs. Coach Bear Bryant echoed this, underscoring the untapped potential in individuals unaware of their abilities. Our self-image drives our behavior, a self-fulfilling prophecy where actions confirm beliefs. Whether we see ourselves as shy, capable, intelligent, or unworthy, our behavior aligns with these beliefs. However, many self-concepts are untrue or rationalizations. The strongest drive isn't self-preservation but maintaining self-image. Strengthening this is pivotal for effectiveness. Winners perceive themselves as such, increasing their success rates. Conversely, losers often fulfill negative prophecies. Disraeli noted, "We create our fortunes and call them fate." Strengthen your self-image. A robust self-image empowers us to achieve and endure. Changing self-image demands willpower and discipline. Strategies to bolster self-worth include letting go of the past. Erroneous past notions limit potential. Replace "I lack initiative" with "I choose to act differently now." Set goals to counter old beliefs. Building on strengths. Emphasize positive traits and past successes. Leverage these to achieve future goals. Recognize and maximize your strengths strategically. Unconditional self-acceptance. Your worth isn't tied to external achievements. Conditional acceptance breeds perpetual dissatisfaction. You're inherently valuable. Accept this. Defying external validation, relying on others' opinions undermines self-worth. Eleanor Roosevelt remarked, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." Ignore detractors. Trust self. Prioritizing personal goals. Avoid subordinating your desires for others. Maintain self-satisfaction to nurture healthy relationships and productivity. Take charge of your life's direction. You control your thoughts and feelings. Effective work attitudes stem from understanding emotions' origins. Feelings aren't mystical but a product of thoughts. Control thoughts to regulate feelings. Choose happiness, confidence, or motivation consciously. Guilt, a bad case of shoulds. Guilt, conditioned since childhood, hampers effectiveness. It's futile, feeding on regret and past mistakes. It excuses inaction and garners pity, obstructing self-improvement. To overcome guilt, acknowledge the past's irreversibility. Focus on present actions. Allocate time for guilt and realize its energy drain. Set goals to move past guilt's grip. Accept mistakes, learn, and grow. Detach from guilt wielders. Worry. Futile future forecasting. Worry paralyzes with imagined future catastrophes. Most concerns are unfounded, wasting energy and time. Replace worry with proactive planning. Act on present opportunities rather than fretting. To combat worry, reflect on past worries unrealized. List worst fears. Acknowledge their improbability. Confront worries head-on with action plans. Realize the futility of excessive worry. Redirect energy towards meaningful goals. Fear of failure. The imaginary wall. Fear of failure inhibits action and stifles potential. Failure is subjective. Animals don't comprehend it. Overcoming this fear involves embracing challenges and learning from setbacks. To conquer fear of failure, recognize failures as learning opportunities. Reframe failure as a stepping stone to success. Challenge self-imposed limits. Reject the safety of inaction for the risks of growth. Support others' efforts despite setbacks. By shedding guilt, worry, and fear of failure, we pave the way for a more effective, fulfilling life. Embracing positive attitudes and self-belief propels us towards achieving our highest potential. Remember, attitude isn't just a small part of success, it defines it. The most vociferous critics are generally frustrated doers who are ruled by their own fear of failure. Those who give in to their fears and choose the psychological payoffs overlook one major point. Failure is not a measure of success. In fact, as we have already pointed out, failure isn't anything. In life, it isn't what you lose that counts, it's what you gain and what you have left. If you find yourself immobilized due to fear of failure, here are some ideas to help you overcome it. Set your own standards of success. Remember that failure is arbitrary. Don't allow your life to be ruled by standards other than your own. You don't have to be president of the company because your father was or your spouse wants you to be. It's your choice, not theirs. Don't fall into the trap of success-failure thinking. If you set a goal and pursue it, evaluate your own performance in terms of degrees of success. Don't feel you have to succeed or achieve excellence in everything you do. There's nothing wrong with a mediocre round of golf, at least that's what I keep telling myself, or a poor set of tennis, as long as you're having fun. Meet your fear of failure head-on. Find something you would like to do but fear failure in, and do it. Even if you don't succeed to the degree you hope to, you won't have any regrets. After all, you will be doing what you want to do. It's better to feel sorry for the things you've done than to regret missed opportunities. All ventures involve risk, but not to venture is to waste your life. If you do feel you have failed, recognize it as a learning experience that will make you wiser and contribute to later successes. Astute young politicians practice this. They join a political race fully realizing they have no chance of winning. However, by throwing their hat in the ring, they get public exposure and learn the ropes of campaigning. All of the exposure and learning can someday contribute to a victorious campaign. We can learn a great deal more from our failures than our successes, provided we avail ourselves of the opportunity. Realize that meaningful success is rarely easy and is usually preceded by struggle. However, it's those who have the will to see it through that make it. Most of us throw in the towel too soon when hanging in there a little longer would do the job. In his book, The Art of Selfishness, David Seabury strikes this analogy. In South Africa, they dig for diamonds. Tons of earth are moved to find a little pebble not as large as a little fingernail. The miners are looking for the diamonds, not the dirt. They are willing to lift all the dirt in order to find the jewels. In daily life, people forget this principle and become pessimists because there is more dirt than diamonds. When trouble comes, don't be frightened by the negatives. Look for the positives and dig them out. Last but not least is the final time and energy killer: anger. If anything good comes from severe anger and its byproducts of hatred and bitterness, I've yet to see it. It certainly accomplishes nothing regardless of whether it's aimed at others, oneself, or inanimate objects. In the final analysis, the angry person is saying, the world and its people must live up to my expectations. Of course, such a demand is totally ridiculous. Anger starts wars, and unless we learn to control it, anger may lead to the total extinction of humanity. Like the other three immobilizing emotions, anger has its neurotic rewards. If you're angry at other things or people, then it's all their fault for not living up to your expectations. Therefore, you don't have to change. Anger can get you loads of sympathy, attention, and power over those who will allow you to manipulate them. Poor George, he has such a terrible temper. It's really a shame because he has such bad headaches, backaches, and high blood pressure as a result. Let's just do what he wants. God forbid what might happen if he gets mad. And besides, it's not his fault that he's such a sensitive, intense, and totally alive person. Anger gives you license to go temporarily insane, thus exonerating you from responsibility for unsatisfactory behavior. You can tell yourself and others, I don't know what came over me. I just lost my temper. Finally, anger is an excuse for incompetence. You can blame your bad temper for your inability to think straight or take constructive action. Of course, all of those payoffs are total wastes of time and energy. Getting out of your car and kicking the tires when you break down on the freeway isn't going to get you rolling again. However, the most self-destructive anger is that which is aimed at other people. The late Senator Hubert Humphrey put it best: bitterness takes too much energy and accomplishes nothing. It doesn't hurt the other person. You think you're sending out the rays of bitterness like laser beams, but they stay inside of you, consuming you. We live in an angry age typified by high crime rates, petty bickering, broken homes, and people suing each other at the drop of a hat. Whatever the reasons, there are lots of us who evidently feel that the solution to our problems is anger. How unfortunate. You are best off if you can eliminate your anger completely. If you can't eliminate anger, here are some useful ideas for coping with it. Vent your anger constructively. It isn't healthy to suppress anger, but there are constructive alternatives to venting it. For example, you can work your frustrations out with a regular exercise program. Sometimes a little anger can provide an additional spark to move you toward meeting your goals. For example, when I first started making plans to write this book, I mentioned it to one of my colleagues at work. He laughed at the idea and said it would never get written, much less published. I went home and started writing that day. His negative reaction was just what I needed to get me moving. How can I ever thank him enough? Take your work seriously, but not yourself. Ethel Barrymore put it best when she said, "You grow up the day you have your first real laugh at yourself." There is absolutely no future in taking life too seriously. Our mental institutions and prisons are filled with people who have. Develop your sense of humor and use it frequently. It is impossible to laugh and be angry at the same time. A good sense of humor creates positive energy and prevents the negative emotions from clouding your life. Your life is a gift that you must give back to your Creator one day. So enjoy it to the hilt and leave the long faces to those who are going to live forever. Accept the fact that many things in life will not live up to your expectations. This is hardly a perfect world, and I don't know about you, but I'd feel terribly out of place if it were. Practice accepting those things in life you cannot change. Tolerance and serenity are great antidotes to anger. Give your anger a rain check. If something bothers you, count to 10 or, better yet, tell yourself, I'll get mad about this tomorrow. Postponing anger is a good way to minimize it. Spontaneously unloading your anger on your boss, spouse, or secretary can escalate minor mishaps into major catastrophes. Postponing your anger can reduce the odds of that happening. Realize that you don't have to get mad to take constructive action. Positive, enthusiastic emotions achieve fulfillment, making good use of time and creating energy rather than draining it. Ridding yourself of guilt, worry, fear of failure, and excessive anger can make you a new person. Suddenly, you will find you have time, energy, and abilities you never dreamed you had. Picture yourself as a container in which time and energy are stored, and your time and energy as the liquid in the container. The negative emotions are holes in the bottom of the container. To the extent that you are able to plug up the holes, you will have more time and energy to do the things in life that are fulfilling to you. To carry the analogy one step further, the greater the pressure that is applied to the liquid, the faster it will drain out of the holes. This is also true with work. The best use of time and energy is made by taking the pressure off. However, before we can take the pressure off, we have to know where the pressure really comes from. Chapter 6. No more excuses. Get things done today. If you want to make an easy job seem mighty hard, just keep putting off doing it. Olin Miller. Are you a procrastinator? If you answered yes, allow me to congratulate you for your honesty. To some degree, we all are. Procrastination is so universal that there is now a National Procrastination Club whose members have been planning to meet for some time but haven't gotten around to it yet. The price of procrastination. Several underlying beliefs discussed in Chapter 1 contribute to procrastination. Myths such as believing activity means productivity, opting for the easy way as the best way, viewing work as inherently unpleasant, subscribing to the justice myth, and the belief that we work best under pressure, provide us with ample excuses for delaying or avoiding tasks. Procrastination can be insidious as it often goes unnoticed. The tasks you complete are what you achieve, while those left undone or postponed accumulate. However, procrastination becomes problematic when it leads to neglecting or delaying tasks that are important to you. The high cost of delay. 1. Waste of the present. Dale Carnegie once lamented, "One of the most tragic things I know about human nature is that all of us tend to put off living." Dreaming endlessly about a better future neglects the present opportunities and fails to build a meaningful future. Today is all we truly possess, and procrastination squanders it. 2. An unfulfilled life. Procrastination stifles fulfillment by relegating meaningful action to an uncertain tomorrow. For the procrastinator, today never has to count for anything because there's always the promise of tomorrow. This void in the present invites less desirable alternatives to fill the gap. 3. Boredom. Choosing to be bored is often a hallmark of procrastination. Life itself isn't boring. Rather, it's a matter of using present moments constructively. Those who opt for boredom as a lifestyle merely structure their time around procrastination. 4. The anxiety of working under pressure. Procrastination breeds anxiety by leaving tasks until the last minute, creating unnecessary stress. The phenomenon is evident on April 15th at the post office, where last-minute taxpayers abound, demonstrating the perils of delaying important duties. 5. Impotent goals. Many procrastinators have aspirations and goals, but these remain mere aspirations due to their inability to take action. The chronic "I'm gonna" syndrome, expressing intentions without follow-through, characterizes their lack of achievement. 6. The constant plague of unsolved problems. Ignoring problems in the hope they'll disappear is a hallmark of procrastination. However, unresolved issues tend to multiply and compound over time. Neglecting a minor issue can lead to major repercussions, echoing the adage that a stitch in time saves 9. 7. Continuous frustration. Frustration arises from unmet expectations in life. Procrastinators perpetuate their frustration by deferring action and relying on hope rather than concrete steps towards improvement. This cycle of inaction can lead to significant personal and professional setbacks. 8. Other results of procrastination. Procrastination can also manifest in poor health due to neglecting medical concerns and in a mediocre career by failing to seize opportunities. Indecision becomes a way of life, robbing individuals of control over their futures. Fatigue, ironically, becomes a consequence of the mental and emotional strain caused by chronic procrastination. Certainly. Here is a professionally revised version of the text with spelling corrections, grammar adjustments, and some layout improvements. Why we procrastinate. With the price of procrastination being so exorbitant, it is only natural to ask, why do we do it? Most, but not all, reasons for procrastinating are emotional in nature. To escape an overwhelming task. By filling up present moments with trivia, one can escape doing something important but seemingly too large to tackle. For example, Ben, a department manager, faces the task of preparing a semi-annual status report. He looks at the job and thinks, if I start this now, it's just going to be one interruption after another. So he deludes himself into believing he'll do the report someday when he won't have to worry about interruptions, spending the rest of his day writing memos, answering the telephone, conversing with colleagues, and writing routine correspondence. He goes home tired but content. After all, he got a lot done today. As the report's deadline approaches, Ben embarks on a crash program and ends up writing it at night or over the weekend, complaining about being overworked. To escape unpleasant tasks. All of us have important but unpleasant things to do from time to time. Given the choice, most will opt for anything pleasant over something unpleasant. Take the case of Charlie, whose garage is wall-to-wall chaos. One Saturday morning, Charlie receives an ultimatum from his wife. Clean out the garage this afternoon or sleep in it tonight. On his way to the garage, Charlie notices his neighbor, Fred, having car trouble. Being a lover of mechanics and a good neighbor, Charlie spends the next 2 hours helping Fred fix his car. Then Fred has Charlie over for a beer. It's the least he can do. Inside, Fred and Charlie spend the next 3 hours absorbed in a football game on television. What a game! When the game ends, so does Saturday afternoon. Charlie returns home to a chagrined wife who gives him a look reminiscent of the Spanish Inquisition. Charlie ends up cleaning and organizing the garage that night, hindered by darkness and doing a mediocre job, which gives him another payoff. To excuse poor work. This is one of the biggest cop-outs of delay. I just couldn't get to it until the last minute. If only I had more time, I could have done a better job. As a college professor, I frequently hear that excuse from students who submit poorly written term papers. The most amazing part of that excuse is that term papers are assigned the first week of class and collected the last. Yet, I hear that excuse at least once each semester. To gain sympathy. See how hard I try, is the battle cry of the procrastinating warrior. The translation of such a statement is, don't see how little I have done. Ben, looking haggard and overworked, turns in a half-baked report to his boss a week late. After stumbling around in the darkness for 6 hours, Charlie drags in, covered from head to toe with dirt, and flops into bed, totally fatigued. Anxiety-laden students beg the professor for term paper deadline extensions. Don't you feel sorry for all these poor, unfortunate victims of circumstance? Hogwash. To get someone else to do the job. There's nothing wrong with delegating tasks. However, there are easier, quicker, and more direct ways to go about it than playing the put-off game with someone. Such covert behavior wastes everybody's time. Ideas for effectively delegating are discussed in Chapter 9. To protect a weak self-image. An inferior self-image and fears of failure or success are other reasons for inaction. By deluding oneself with excuses for not doing, one avoids the anxiety and pain of failure and can also avoid success and any problems feared to accompany it. Thus, one can just be the same old procrastinating self, complete with all the accompanying miseries. Choice. Most will opt for anything pleasant over something unpleasant. Take the case of Charlie, whose garage is wall-to-wall chaos. One Saturday morning, Charlie receives an ultimatum from his wife. Clean out the garage this afternoon or sleep in it tonight. On his way to the garage, Charlie notices his neighbor, Fred, having car trouble. Being a lover of mechanics and a good neighbor, Charlie spends the next 2 hours helping Fred fix his car. Then Fred has Charlie over for a beer. It's the least he can do. Inside, Fred and Charlie spend the next 3 hours absorbed in a football game on television. What a game! When the game ends, so does Saturday afternoon. Charlie returns home to a chagrined wife who gives him a look reminiscent of the Spanish Inquisition. Charlie ends up cleaning and organizing the garage that night, hindered by darkness and doing a mediocre job, which gives him another payoff. To excuse poor work. This is one of the biggest cop-outs of delay. I just couldn't get to it until the last minute. If only I had more time, I could have done a better job. As a college professor, I frequently hear that excuse from students who submit poorly written term papers. The most amazing part of that excuse is that term papers are assigned the first week of class and collected the last. Yet, I hear that excuse at least once each semester. To gain sympathy. "See how hard I try," is the battle cry of the procrastinating warrior. The translation of such a statement is, "Don't see how little I have done." Ben, looking haggard and overworked, turns in a half-baked report to his boss a week late. After stumbling around in the darkness for 6 hours, Charlie drags in, covered from head to toe with dirt, and flops into bed, totally fatigued. Anxiety-laden students beg the professor for term paper deadline extensions. Don't you feel sorry for all these poor, unfortunate victims of circumstance? Hogwash. To get someone else to do the job. There's nothing wrong with delegating tasks. However, there are easier, quicker, and more direct ways to go about it than playing the put-off game with someone. Such covert behavior wastes everybody's time. Ideas for effectively delegating are discussed in Chapter 9. To protect a weak self-image. An inferior self-image and fears of failure or success are other reasons for inaction. By deluding oneself with excuses for not doing, one avoids the anxiety and pain of failure and can also avoid success and any problems feared to accompany it. Thus, one can just be the same old procrastinating self, complete with all the accompanying miseries, misfortunes, and frustrations of the past. To avoid change. Giving oneself a lifetime to be a bored, critical, indecisive, unachieving, blah individual is a way to avoid change. The easy way tape plays on. Other reasons for procrastination. Not all procrastination is bad, and not all reasons for procrastinating are emotional cop-outs for inaction. There are several non-emotional reasons for procrastinating, mentioned here briefly because they have been discussed in detail earlier. Improper goals can be a source of delay. Are you sure this goal is still important or necessary? Is it really your goal? Insufficient information can block problem-solving, decision-making, and task completion. Goals without deadlines tend never to get achieved, or get achieved much later. Overcommitment inevitably leads to procrastination. Saying yes to everything decreases the chances of completing anything. Unrealistic time estimates can cause bottlenecks and delays. Remember Murphy's Law, everything takes longer than expected. Techniques for creating momentum. When Newton formulated his law of inertia, he probably wasn't thinking about human behavior. However, the law applies equally well to people and objects. A body, human or otherwise, at rest tends to remain at rest, and a body in motion tends to remain in motion. When procrastinating, one is at rest, and the hardest part is getting started. Once in motion, most people will tend to remain in motion. The following list offers ideas for creating momentum. For any given task, one or more of these techniques can help conquer procrastination. Recognize and acknowledge the futility of procrastination as a way of living. By procrastinating, one puts oneself under a useless emotional strain. Do you really want a life of frustration, fatigue, and boredom? No one does. To the degree you let yourself live a life of delay and inaction, you invite the dark side of living into your existence. Admittedly, it's often tough to get up and tackle difficult tasks, but what's your alternative? Spending your life rotting on the vine like an unpicked tomato may be your idea of living, but I seriously doubt it. You wouldn't be taking the time to read this book if you didn't value your life. Break down overwhelming tasks into smaller ones. Anyone who has performed monumental feats knows the value of this idea. Henry Ford once remarked, "Nothing is particularly hard if you divide it into small jobs." The auto assembly line was founded on this idea. Want to write a 200-page book? Write a page each day and finish in less than 7 months. Want to be a millionaire? Invest $1,000 annually starting at age 30 and get a 15% compounded annual return. At age 65, you'll have $1 million. Whenever faced with a seemingly overwhelming task, divide it into 5 or 10-minute subtasks. Write them down, list them in order, and tackle the first one now. Once started, you'll gain momentum to finish the job. Large successes are usually a series of small ones. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Face unpleasant tasks squarely. A humorist once defined an optimist as a woman who leaves dinner dishes because she'll feel more like washing them in the morning. Most unpleasant tasks are like dinner dishes. Ignoring them doesn't make them disappear and usually makes things worse. Why cloud your horizons when a little effort brings sunny skies? Reserve 10 or 15 minutes to work on an unpleasant task and quit when time's up. Tasks such as preparing a budget, taking an inventory, or cleaning the attic can be handled this way. Unfortunately, some tasks like firing an employee or delivering bad news can't be done piecemeal. In such cases, do it now. Not doing it today ensures it will burden you with other tasks tomorrow. Realize you compound your workload with inaction and resolve to do the task now. Do a startup task. Sometimes a little spontaneous physical action gets you in the mood to start a major task. Need to rake leaves? Walk to the corner store and buy lawn leaf bags now. Need to write a report? List 10 major points on a piece of paper and rank them in order for discussion. Need to answer a letter? Address the envelope now. Need to settle a misunderstanding with a customer? Look up their telephone number now. Take advantage of your moods. How often have you said, "I'm just not in the mood"? Use your moods to your advantage. You may not feel like writing a report today, but do you feel like calling someone for helpful information? You may not feel like fixing a TV antenna, but do you feel like gathering necessary hardware? Use your moods to work for you rather than against you. Think of something important you've been delaying. List the good things that could happen by doing it. List all the disadvantages of inaction. You'll usually find the advantages of action outweigh the liabilities of inaction. This technique creates enthusiasm to get you going. For example, suppose it's spring and you want to plant a vegetable garden but haven't done it. Your list might look like this. Advantages of action. Fresh tasting, homegrown vegetables are a real treat. Disadvantages of inaction. Please make sure to continue the rest of your work in this format. Advantages of action. Fresh tasting, homegrown vegetables are a real treat. Enjoyment of gardening activities and being outdoors. Savings on grocery bills by producing your own vegetables. Health benefits of eating fresh, organic produce. Pride and satisfaction in creating something productive. Disadvantages of inaction. Miss out on the joy of gardening and connecting with nature. Continued reliance on store-bought vegetables of potentially lower quality. Delaying self-sufficiency and sustainability efforts. Risk of losing planting season and delaying potential harvest. Continued disappointment in not achieving a personal goal. 1. Prioritize self-care and well-being. Taking care of oneself is important for mental, emotional, and physical health. It's often easy to prioritize other things over self-care, but neglecting oneself can lead to burnout and decreased productivity. 2. Seek support from others. Having a support system can provide encouragement, advice, and accountability. Surrounding oneself with people who are motivated and proactive can inspire one to take action and overcome procrastination. 3. Reflect on successes and learn from setbacks. Reflecting on past successes can boost confidence and remind oneself of capabilities. Learning from setbacks helps in making adjustments and improving future outcomes. 4. Reward yourself. Rewarding oneself after completing tasks or milestones can reinforce positive behavior and motivate continued productivity. Rewards can be small, such as taking a break or enjoying a treat, or more substantial, such as treating oneself to a movie or a day off. 5. Treat, or more substantial, such as treating oneself to a movie or a day off. 5. Time is running out. If I don't start soon, I won't get another chance for a year. 6. Without the garden, we will have to settle for a less enjoyable vacation. 7. With the additional savings in grocery money, we can afford the camping trip to Yellowstone this year. 8. Growing a garden is good exercise and a great diversion from my job. 9. Without some additional diversions, I'll probably spend my spare time worrying about my 10. This is an opportunity to learn by doing something I've never done before. 11. I'm getting a little old to believe in the jolly green giant. Lonely is a man without his own niblets. 12. I can make this a family project that we can all learn from, enjoy, participate in, and take pride in. This can bring us all closer. 13. We all seem to be drifting in separate ways. Without some common goals, family unity can be severely damaged. 14. Make a commitment to someone or place a wager. Tell your boss that you will have the budget prepared a week early or buy him dinner of his choice. If you are a sales 20 representative, bet one of your colleagues, or more than one if you wish, that you will increase last month's sales by 20%. or buy all the drinks at a future happy hour. Ensure there's something in it for you if you win. You want both an incentive for reaching your goal and a penalty for falling short. 15. Give yourself a reward. This is one of my favorite methods for conquering procrastination because it's positive in nature. Identify an important goal that you have been avoiding and decide on a fitting reward for when you achieve it. For instance, you might decide to get that new briefcase you've been admiring after adding 10 new customers to your list. Or how about a new pair of shoes after cleaning out the attic or shampooing the rugs? Make sure your reward aligns with the size of the task. For example, if you have been attending night school to earn an advanced degree, promise yourself something substantial like a 2-week cruise after graduation. Setting up your own reward system can be an effective way to reduce procrastination. Just be honest with yourself. If you complete the task, give yourself the reward. If you don't, withhold the reward. For rational delays, employ the following previously discussed methods. Get more rest. Avoid overcommitment. Set realistic time schedules. Resolve to make every day count. Your life is too short to waste on inaction. George Allen captured it best when he remarked, "The future is now." After living with an incurable cancer for some time, Senator Hubert Humphrey observed, "You learn to treat each day as a gift." Before you start your day, resolve to accomplish 2 things. Enjoy today and do something that will contribute to a better tomorrow. Each day is precious. Treat it as such, and you will make significant strides toward overcoming procrastination. Be decisive and summon the courage to act. A good working definition of courage is the ability to act despite fear. Consider the case of Alfred, a 50-year-old chief engineer with a wife and family. Since age 40, Alfred had planned to start his own manufacturing business. He had a product, identified a good market, possessed technical expertise, secured capital, and lined up potential customers. However, Alfred hesitated to make the final commitment due to fears of potential failure. What if the entire venture goes bankrupt? What if I can't afford my children's college tuition? What if I can't meet the mortgage payments? Alfred's fears were holding him back, as Lloyd Douglas observed. If a man harbors any sort of fear, it makes him landlord to a ghost. Encouraged by his family, Alfred eventually took the plunge and launched his business, where he has since achieved personal and financial success. When I spoke with him 5 years into his business venture, he expressed regret only for the years of enjoyment and satisfaction he missed by delaying the decision to start his own business. Alfred's experience reminded me of Maurice Freehill's question, "Who is more foolish, the child afraid of the dark or the man afraid of the light?" Delaying action wastes valuable time, and as Alfred discovered, all the wealth in the world cannot reclaim lost moments, let alone lost years. They are gone forever. Remember, you possess greater potential than you realize and can endure far more adversity than you imagine. Eliminate self-defeating statements such as, "I'm gonna," "I wish," "I want," "I hope," and the like. Make something happen. Your actions will speak for themselves. Refuse to be bored. Are you stuck in a rut? Break free from it. Take a different route to work. Dine at a new restaurant for lunch. Change your hairstyle or purchase some new clothes. Explore an exotic dish you've always been wary of and purposely order or cook it. Substitute the familiar with the unfamiliar. As Auntie Mame once said, life is a banquet. So why spend each day sitting in a corner with a can of sardines? There is so much world to see and so little time. Practice doing absolutely nothing. When you find yourself avoiding an important task, sit in a chair and see how long you can do nothing. In just a few minutes, you will likely find yourself eager to get started. Most of us struggle with the art of doing nothing. Once you can no longer bear the void of idleness, commit to tackling the task you've been avoiding and begin it, right now. Frequently ask yourself, what is the best use of my time and energy right now? If your current activity does not align with the answer, stop it and redirect your time and energy to a more important task. Finally, each morning, ask yourself, what is the greatest challenge facing me today, and what am I going to do about it? Chapter 7. No More Distractions. The Ultimate Focus Formula. A committee is a group of men who individually can do nothing but collectively can meet and decide that nothing can be done. Alfred E. Smith. I'd love to waste my time. When do we start? What do these statements have in common? They translate to an inclination to engage in unproductive activities. If you believe you are paid for being available rather than being effective, your organization may not prioritize results. Unfortunately, the growth of large bureaucracies often prioritizes activities, rituals, and red tape over productivity. Productive individuals prefer to produce results, and it offends their sense of purpose to do otherwise. Do you dislike committee meetings and resent being constantly available for random calls and drop-in visitors? If so, you likely have a natural disposition toward effectiveness. Given the chance, you might work less, accomplish more, and find greater meaning in your work. Meetings, visitors, and telephone calls are not inherently unproductive, just as gunpowder isn't inherently destructive. It all depends on how they are used. Unfortunately, the perceived legitimacy of these common time wasters allows them to proliferate unchecked. By managing meetings, visitors, and telephone use effectively, we can transform these potential time wasters into tools that enhance effectiveness. Why we have so many useless meetings. When it comes to meetings, many of us act as though we've never heard the adage time is money. Meetings are often seen as the top time waster. Consider the cost. Calculate the per-hour salaries of committee members, and you'll find that meetings can cost thousands of dollars per hour. Yet, many fail to see meetings in terms of dollars and cents. Here are other common reasons for unnecessary meetings. To provide an audience for someone. Some people enjoy hearing themselves talk and feel compelled to share their thoughts with a group. It's like the late Senator Everett Dirksen once said during a Senate committee meeting, "My dear sir, you are interrupting the man I most want to hear." How often have you attended meetings where you simply listened to someone's opinions on everything from global economics to dog breeding? Too many times, I'm sure. It's an expensive ego trip and a significant reason for the prevalence of useless meetings. To socialize. Few can tolerate prolonged periods of solitary work. Meetings provide an opportunity for social interaction under the guise of conducting business. Ralph can discuss his golf game with Bill, and George can flirt with the boss's secretary who takes meeting minutes. While a social gathering might be more appropriate, we avoid acknowledging that little work gets done, choosing instead to socialize during committee sessions. To escape being effective. Committee involvement can fill your schedule and provide an excuse for neglecting critical job responsibilities. By volunteering for multiple committees, you can justify ignoring essential tasks or submitting assignments late. Meetings appear to structure work time ambitiously, yet time might be better spent on a Caribbean vacation. This illustrates the activity myth once again. Habit. Regularly scheduled meetings often persist out of tradition long after their relevance has diminished. People resist change, and traditions endure despite their fading purpose. Years ago, I read about a federal government tea tasting board established in the 18th century. While considered a waste of taxpayer money, tradition kept it operational. I'm unsure if it was disbanded, but traditions often persist even when obsolete. To pass the buck. Individuals sometimes form committees to avoid making tough decisions alone. By seeking committee recommendations, they share responsibility. This strategy, often employed to cover your ass (CYA), leads to a lack of accountability and inefficiencies in educational institutions. As Richard Buskirk pointed out, something that is everyone's responsibility is no one's responsibility. To create illusion of participation in important decisions. Not all committees utilize the capabilities of members to make critical decisions. In many cases, bosses form committees to gather recommendations they can either ignore or dictate terms to. Meetings become exercises in token participation, where decisions are already made, rendering advice-seeking pointless. This approach was criticized during Richard Nixon's presidency, as members of Congress accused him of pseudo-participation. Getting the most from meetings. Hendrik van Loon once defined a committee as a group which succeeds in getting something done only when it consists of 3 members, one of whom happens to be sick and another absent. Fortunately, it doesn't have to be that way. With a little forethought and diligence, we can eliminate many useless meetings and make the remaining ones more effective. The following ideas are presented with those purposes in mind. General guidelines. Begin by taking an inventory of all existing committees and meetings. Write down the purpose of each. Are they really necessary? Have some outlived their usefulness? Can any be consolidated or eliminated? If so, do it. Have a minimum number of standing committees. No committee should be allowed to linger indefinitely. Regularly question the purpose of each committee's existence. Every time you form a committee, State its purpose, give it a deadline for achieving its purpose, if possible, and dissolve it when it has achieved its goal. Never call a meeting when there is a reasonable alternative. Can a conference call be arranged instead? Can the job be done by an individual? Never attend a meeting if you can send someone else. Keep the number of attending members as small as possible. Large committees become cumbersome and usually end up being dominated by a small number of people. Preparation. Working smart in meetings is much like the rest of life. An investment of time and energy in forethought and planning pays handsome dividends. If you decide to call a meeting, determine precisely what you expect to accomplish. Every meeting should have at least one goal, and if there is more than one goal, a set of priorities. Set a starting and ending time for each meeting and resolve to stick to them. If people arrive late, begin without them. Schedule meetings back-to-back, before lunch, or near the end of the day to prevent long, drawn-out meetings. Make an agenda and circulate it well in advance to those attending. List the goals, topics to be covered, and start and end times. Providing background reading material prior to the meeting helps participants prepare to discuss issues efficiently. Prepare visuals like charts, graphs, handouts, slides, and use of a chalkboard to clarify or illustrate points. Provide notepads and pencils for participants. Ensure physical surroundings are comfortable with adequate size, lighting, and ventilation. Execution. Many meetings only result in calling another. The following guidelines can help prevent your best-laid plans from going up in smoke at the conference. Stick to the prepared agenda and stay on course. Focus on the meeting's purpose and the current topic. Prevent meetings from getting sidetracked or degenerating into bull sessions. It's the chairman's responsibility to maintain focus and handle issues one at a time. If invited to a meeting and you feel you have nothing to contribute, consider not attending. If attendance is mandatory, use the time for productive activities like reading or correspondence. If conducting a meeting, excuse those who have finished their contributions before its end. If attending and you've contributed, ask to be excused. If chairing a meeting, ensure everyone participates. Encourage quieter members to speak and manage those who dominate discussions or get off topic calmly. If attendees seem bored or bogged down, briefly divert to engage them before returning to the agenda. Hold stand-up meetings to expedite discussions. Uncomfortable seating can also discourage prolonged meetings. Follow-up. Designate someone to take accurate minutes at meetings. Ideally, use a third party like a secretary rather than a participant. Distribute minutes promptly to all attendees. Memory fades quickly after meetings, so good recording is essential. Prepare a checklist before each meeting outlining goals. Afterward, compare outcomes with the agenda to measure meeting effectiveness. Eliminate or improve future meetings based on these evaluations. In summary, enhancing meeting effectiveness involves eliminating unnecessary meetings and focusing necessary ones on clear goals. Regularly assess their contribution to organizational goals. Life with drop-in. One of the chief challenges in the work world is drop-in visitors. It's common to spend half or more of our workday managing unexpected interruptions from visitors, whether they're colleagues or sales representatives. Like meetings, drop-ins can lead to inefficiency and procrastination. Making the telephone work for you. It's always intriguing to be interrupted from the task at hand by the ringing or buzzing of the telephone. Who could it be? What do they want? The mystery of the unknown is always more appealing than attending to the task at hand. So, we take the calls as they come and allow our work to be randomly disrupted. Actually, telephonitis results from a good thing put to misuse. The following ideas can help you prevent and cure this dreadful effectiveness killer. Log your calls for 1 week. Record who calls, when they call, what they want, and the duration of the calls. Log your outgoing calls similarly. The 80-20th rule probably applies here. 80% of your calls come from less than 20% of all callers. After completing a week's log, answer the following questions. Who called? Whom did you call? Which calls were important? How many calls could be handled by someone else? How much time was spent on unnecessary calls? Make your telephone a time and energy saver. That's why it's there. The telephone is a terrific labor-saving tool. Use it for conference calls rather than the time and expense of a meeting. Instead of writing letters, use the telephone. Clerical costs are rising while the cost of long-distance calls is decreasing. The telephone provides information in minutes that a letter could take weeks or months to acquire. Finally, use the telephone to save time and expense on trips. Proper use of the telephone is one of our greatest effectiveness tools. Establish a daily time slot for placing and receiving calls. For most of us, the best time is in the morning when people are likely to be at their offices. Encourage your regular callers to call during those hours. Have your secretary screen your calls. This can be done tactfully without making you seem inaccessible. Your secretary can say to the caller, "He's tied up at the moment. Would you like me to interrupt him, or may I have him call you back?" Most callers will opt for a callback. Your secretary can also handle routine inquiries, eliminating your need to call back. Outline your information before making outgoing calls. This clarifies the main points in your mind, reducing the chances of forgetting important details during the conversation. Use a small hourglass timer. Place it by your phone and challenge yourself to complete calls within 3 minutes. Keep track of your progress each week. Make a game out of reducing your telephone time and reward yourself for achieving weekly reductions. Set the tone of the conversation from the outset. When placing a call, ask to speak to the party directly and introduce yourself. Minimize small talk and get to the reason for your call promptly. Chapter 8. Snowstorm Solved. Organize your paper today. Xerox, a trademark for a photocopying device that can make rapid reproductions of human error perfectly.
Merle L. Misham.
During his tenure at NASA, Wernher von Braun once remarked, "We can lick gravity, but sometimes the paperwork is overwhelming." Reflect on how paper has entrenched itself into the very fabric of our lives. We wake up to the morning paper, and for most of us, paper is to our occupations what bread is to our diets, a staple that fattens. In 1977, it was estimated that there were 2.5 times more clerical employees in business than there were producers of goods and services. Just as time is money, paper is money. Let's imagine you own a small business with a 10% profit margin on sales. If your paper workload increases and necessitates hiring another clerk at $150 per week, that amounts to $7,800 annually. To cover this expense, you would need to increase yearly sales revenue by $78,000, not including fringe benefits. Starting to see the picture? Conversely, saving $7,800 is equivalent to earning $7,800, directly adding to profit. Beyond monetary costs, the needless waste of time and energy due to excessive paper use is even more concerning. Filling out forms, writing memos, reading computer printouts, preparing budgets, writing reports, making multiple copies on copiers, and sorting through junk mail all consume valuable resources. Causes of the paper blizzard. Rare is the employed individual who doesn't feel the effects of the paper blizzard. We universally agree that there's too much of it. If nobody likes this deluge of paper, it begs the question, why is there so much paper? The growth of government. This is perhaps the largest contributor to the paper blizzard. American institutions spend $40 billion annually solely on filling out forms and reports for the federal government, with costs increasing each year. The chairman of a major pharmaceutical company claims his firm expends more man-hours on government paperwork than on cancer and heart disease research combined. Similarly, a large oil refinery's chairman asserts that the man-hours devoted to government paperwork could stem from the paper blizzard. We universally agree that there's too much of it. If nobody likes this deluge of paper, it begs the question, why is there so much paper? The growth of government. This is perhaps the largest contributor to the paper blizzard. American institutions spend $40 billion annually solely on filling out forms and reports for the federal government, with costs increasing each year. The chairman of a major pharmaceutical company claims his firm expends more man-hours on government paperwork than on cancer and heart disease research combined. Similarly, a large oil refinery's chairman asserts that the man-hours devoted to government paperwork could staff and operate another major refinery. A prominent university spends $300,000 annually on personnel to complete reports for government grants and contracts. It's estimated that paperwork adds $50 to $75 to the cost of each new car. The increased government involvement in healthcare has inundated hospitals, physicians, and clinics with additional paperwork, which incurs costs without enhancing patient care. The information explosion. The knowledge industry, encompassing educational institutions, major media, and all entities contributing to human knowledge, is perhaps our society's largest industry. Knowledge is expanding exponentially, requiring professionals in technical and non-technical fields to stay current. Annually, around 35,000 new book titles are published by approximately 1,300 U.S. publishers. Add newspapers, journals, pamphlets, and other publications, and you have another significant contributor to the paper blizzard: copy machines. These devices are major contributors to the paper blizzard. Nearly every office has some type of copier: photocopy, ditto, mimeograph, etc. If you need 5 copies, why not make 7 or 8, just in case? This mentality contributes to drowning in our own clutter despite the intent to increase efficiency. Insecurity. The old work myth persists. Creating excessive paperwork keeps everyone busy, alleviating guilt about insufficient work. Busy hands are seen as happy hands, and an idle mind is considered the devil's workshop. Keep shuffling those papers. Lack of trust. There's a pervasive mistrust today, leading to demands for everything in writing. While some caution is justified, widespread mistrust undermines societal foundations. Trust among people is essential for society to function smoothly. However, over-documentation and verification of trivial details waste time and paper. Many documents duplicate information already recorded elsewhere, contributing to unnecessary paperwork. The rise of computers. Alongside electronic data pollution, EDP, increased computer use generates vast amounts of paper. Some computers can print thousands of lines per minute, producing reams of useless data, junk mail, and meaningless documents. How to melt the blizzard. The odds of any one person melting the paper blizzard are akin to melting an iceberg with a match. The momentum of government growth, computer use, copy machines, and the knowledge industry suggests more paper in our future. Nevertheless, proactive steps can shield you from the deluge. Reduce paper generation. Focus on achieving results rather than generating paperwork. Act on necessary papers immediately and discard or store others efficiently. Minimize written documentation. Opt for face-to-face communication over memos whenever possible. Avoid duplicating information already documented elsewhere. Screen paper. Prioritize tasks that require your attention and delegate routine paperwork to assistants. Remove yourself from unnecessary mailing lists and subscriptions. Avoid overusing copiers. Resist the temptation to make unnecessary copies. Each additional copy contributes to unnecessary clutter and inefficiency. If in doubt, throw it out. Embrace a culture of minimalism in paperwork. Regularly declutter files and discard outdated or unnecessary documents. Handle paper once. Adopt the principle of acting on each piece of paper immediately. If it requires action, do it promptly to avoid revisiting the same paperwork multiple times. Utilize telephones. Take advantage of modern telecommunications to reduce written correspondence. Direct communication saves time and ensures immediate clarification. Master dictation. Use dictation machines to expedite written communication. Dictating letters can be significantly faster than writing them by hand, optimizing productivity during otherwise unproductive moments. Promote paper reduction. Encourage your workplace to adopt paper reduction strategies. Reward innovative ideas and initiatives aimed at minimizing unnecessary paper use. Lee Grossman, a management consultant specializing in paperwork problems, believes costs could be slashed by 20% through effective paper management. Remember, every piece of paper saved contributes directly to your efficiency and bottom line. Enhancing writing and reading effectiveness. Reducing any company's costs by 20% would significantly boost the financial scoreboard. Here are some strategies to minimize your active participation in the paper blizzard. Many paperwork tasks are unnecessary, and how effectively we handle them brings us back to the basics of writing and reading. Let's delve into each aspect. How to write less and communicate more. Many of us dread writing, whether it's a memo, letter, or report. One reason is that many of us are simply poor writers. However, this can be corrected with patience and practice. What makes a poor writer? In my opinion, a poor writer fails to make themselves easily understood. Several factors contribute to poor writing. Firstly, we've inherited numerous bad writing practices from the 19th century. Flowery, verbose language was once a symbol of literacy and culture. For instance, saying, "Jack propelled the prolate spheroid," was deemed superior to, "Jack threw the football." Our educational system often encourages using complex words and phrases when simplicity would communicate better. This outdated practice persists despite the 20th century's emphasis on clarity amidst rapid change and technical complexity. Another reason for poor writing is the desire to impress others with our vocabularies. Academic papers often attempt to make simple concepts seem deep and mystifying. Disorganized thinking leads to confused writing, since writing is an expression of thought. Attempting to mask ignorance or poor solutions with complex language only deceives the most naive readers. Improving your writing, like swimming or golfing, requires practice. Writing to communicate demands intelligence, common sense, and the abandonment of any beliefs about being a poor writer. The ground rules are simple. Get organized. Define what you're writing: a letter, report, or memo. Who's the audience? What's the main point? Do supporting points relate to the main idea? For longer pieces, planning and outlining save time and energy. Organizing facts before writing promotes smoother composition. Give yourself ample space. Writing with sufficient room fosters freedom of thought flow. Choose a comfortable pen or consider typing, although simultaneous typing and composing might be challenging. Focus on your reader. What message do you want to convey? Adapt your language to suit them. Begin with your central purpose and outline the structure for longer reports. Trim unnecessary words. Vigorous writing is concise, as Strunk and White assert. Every word should contribute meaningfully. After writing, review for superfluous words and sentences. Streamlining enhances your style. Keep it simple. Write to express, not impress. Use short sentences and paragraphs. Avoid double talk. Clarity trumps complexity. As Theodore Roosevelt noted, writings are useless unless they are read, and they cannot be read unless they are readable. Avoid ambiguous words. In written communication, clarity is crucial. Ambiguity confuses readers. For instance, consider a statement like, living costs in this area are commensurate with other areas of the country and out-housing costs are the same. Ambiguity undermines effective communication. Support with specifics. Specific, detailed writing captivates readers. Illustrate ideas vividly for clarity and impact. Write naturally. Project your thoughts onto paper as you speak. Active, direct language engages readers effectively. Respect your reader. Avoid condescension. Simplify without underestimating your reader's intelligence or knowledge. Volumes explore effective writing, offering further insights. Organize, simplify, and practice to refine your writing prowess. Improving your reading effectiveness. Print remains potent. Amidst debates on declining reading habits, the value of reading remains pivotal. Successful individuals are avid readers, leveraging knowledge for professional growth. To remain effective amid evolving professions, staying informed is imperative. Selectivity is key amidst information overload. Effective reading involves quality over quantity. Here's how to refine your approach. Align reading with goals. Assess material against your objectives. Discard irrelevant content swiftly. Focus on key content. Identify main points and key ideas swiftly. Skim where appropriate. Prioritize relevance. Minimize reading load. Pare down subscriptions to essential journals. Delegate reading and summaries to subordinates where feasible. Annotate for future reference. Mark key passages for easy feasible. Annotate for future reference. Mark key passages for easy retrieval. Active reading aids memory. Retention. Manage reading backlog. Set deadlines for reading or discard outdated materials promptly. Enhance reading speed. While speed matters, comprehension remains paramount. Courses and self-practice can refine reading skills effectively. Efficient reading complements effective writing, enhancing overall productivity. Embrace proactive habits to navigate the paper blizzard and elevate your professional impact. Chapter 9. Team Fusion. Blending Talents for Victory. Who else can do the job? He does the work of two men, Laurel and Hardy.
Minus pradlo.
Do you work long hours or find yourself taking work home? Are you doing routine tasks that others could handle or be trained to do? Do you struggle to complete important tasks on schedule because you're juggling your responsibilities and someone else's? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then you likely fall prey to the do-it-yourself work trap discussed in Chapter 1. As previously noted, there simply isn't enough time in one lifetime to do everything. However, there's ample time to get everything done if you utilize the efforts of others. This is the essence of delegation, assigning tasks to others that you want or need to accomplish. In one sense, delegation is fundamental to urban living. We rely on others to provide transportation, grow and prepare food, build and furnish homes, educate children, and so forth. How many individuals made it possible for you to obtain this book? Surely, at least a few hundred. The same applies to your food, car, clothes, and nearly everything else you acquire. Long ago, we recognized that assigning tasks to specialists fosters a society that works less yet achieves more. However, in our jobs and daily lives, many of us underutilize delegation. We indulge in performing tasks of little importance or that others could more effectively handle. Consequently, less time is dedicated to high-priority matters that only we can manage, greatly diluting our effectiveness. The history of delegation. The history of delegation dates back to the book of Exodus in the Old Testament. After leading his people out of Egypt, Moses fell victim to the do-it-yourself myth. He insisted on personally resolving every dispute among the people of Israel. Recognizing Moses' overcommitment, his father-in-law, Jethro, proposed a solution to enhance Moses' effectiveness. Firstly, educate the people in the law. Secondly, appoint capable individuals to adjudicate routine disputes. This strategy liberated Moses to focus his time and energy on crucial, long-term, and non-routine governance matters. Thus, Scripture states, Moses listened to his father-in-law and did everything he said. He chose capable men from all Israel and made them leaders of the people, officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. They served as judges for the people at all times. The difficult cases they brought to Moses, but every simple matter they decided themselves. Thus, one of history's most effective leaders enhanced his effectiveness through delegation. Of course, Moses had the original to-do and not-to-do list, and he didn't squander paper either. Skillfully delegating tasks remains a key to success. Understanding what to handle and what to assign is critical for everyone, even those without direct reports. We can all benefit from delegation, whether at home or work. Why do most of us delegate less than we should? It doesn't occur to us. Often, we become so engrossed in our activities that we overlook the possibility of assigning tasks to others. Perhaps numerous tasks in our home or workplace could be delegated, but out of habit, we assume responsibility. There's a straightforward remedy for this. Whenever you have a task, ask yourself, can someone else do this? If so, delegate it. Hire someone to mow your lawn or screen your mail, focusing your time and energy on high-impact goals. It might cost a few dollars to have your lawn mowed, but that time can be invested in creative projects or business deals with potentially unlimited returns. Trading money for time has been a practice since antiquity, demonstrating that people willingly exchange the limited days of their lives for discs of copper, bronze, silver, and gold. We believe it's a sign of weakness. This notion likely stems from early childhood. As infants, we're entirely reliant on others for survival. However, as we mature, the parental message encourages independence and self-sufficiency. The image of complete self-sufficiency might have been valid in rural societies, but is now a myth in contemporary urban living. As previously mentioned, our present society depends on mutual interdependence for food, clothing, housing, security, and nearly everything else. Delegation signifies strength, not weakness. To neglect delegation is to disregard one of your most valuable resources. We believe it's immoral. This concept is an offshoot of outdated beliefs about hard work. Some believe that delegating tasks equates to laziness and immoral living. However, morality fundamentally revolves around two principles: avoiding harm to oneself and others. Delegation, when executed responsibly, doesn't breach these principles. We prefer doing the job ourselves. Many of us fill our days with trivial tasks that drain time and energy, tasks easily delegated to others. The rationale often provided is, so what? I enjoy it. Unfortunately, the enjoyment derived from menial tasks often serves as an escape from tackling less familiar, less pleasant, yet more important tasks. Busy work fosters a false sense of accomplishment and alleviates guilt or insecurity about neglecting vital responsibilities. Consider Horace, an aeronautical engineer promoted to supervisor due to his technical competence and stellar performance. Despite his managerial responsibilities, Horace clung to his design work, which he performed comfortably and proficiently. Within weeks, his office mirrored his old workspace, neglecting supervisory duties. Predictably, administrative issues piled up, and Horace's refusal to delegate led to resignation and relocation to a competitor. While bright and capable, Horace became his own worst enemy. Fear of losing control. Insecure managers often fear that empowering subordinates will jeopardize their job security. Similarly, some men react similarly when their spouses pursue employment. Yet, the fear of losing control lacks substantive foundation. Assuming a paternalistic or authoritarian role merely stifles personal and collective development. Eventually, individuals discern the ruse, prompting introspection. Who needs you? I'm too busy to delegate. Delegation does require time initially. Calling, assigning, sometimes training, and verifying job completion. Similar to planning, delegating demands an initial investment of time yet ultimately conserves time and energy. Being too busy to delegate mirrors being too busy to plan. A refusal to invest time upfront increases the likelihood of ineffective, futile efforts. Effective delegation. Enhancing efficiency and growth. But I can do it better and faster. Once again, the problem here is prioritizing short-term expediency over long-term effectiveness. By handling tasks yourself, you only ensure you'll need to redo them when they resurface. This rationale also neglects the crucial need to develop others, especially in leadership roles within families, departments, corporations, or religious groups. If you hold authority, training others to be productive members is a key responsibility. Failing to delegate inhibits their learning and growth opportunities. My boss won't let me delegate. It's common for superiors to insist that certain tasks be handled personally rather than delegated. For instance, as a department manager, your boss might require you to conduct all employee interviews instead of assigning them to an assistant or HR. Similarly, in a household context, a spouse might prefer you cook meals instead of hiring help or dining out. In both scenarios, the issue stems from a misunderstanding about job priorities. Convincing your boss of the benefits of delegation can resolve this. Proposing a trial period for delegated tasks to demonstrate improved outcomes may sway their opinion. If results are positive, continued delegation becomes viable. If not, the task may indeed require your direct involvement. Fear of being disliked. Many hesitate to delegate due to an unspoken fear of being disliked by subordinates. However, people generally appreciate feeling valued within their organizations. To contribute meaningfully, they need responsibilities. Skilled delegators are usually viewed more favorably than those who insist on maintaining control over everything. Fear of mistakes and criticism. Perfectionism often impedes effectiveness. The fear of errors leads some to avoid delegating tasks. Statements like, "If I assign this to Harvey, he'll mess it up," reflect a perfectionist mindset detrimental to growth. Cultivating an environment where mistakes are seen as learning opportunities fosters effectiveness and innovation. Reverse delegation. Delegates don't want responsibility. In some workplaces, reverse delegation occurs, where delegated tasks are pushed back to the delegator. This behavior thrives in intolerant environments. Encouraging autonomy and decision-making is crucial. For instance, a mechanic named Joe habitually deferred decisions to his supervisor, fearing responsibility. Addressing such issues involves empowering individuals to take ownership of their delegated tasks. No one else has the experience or competence. Underestimating others' abilities is common. Delegating tasks offers opportunities for growth and skill development. Giving individuals responsibilities allows them to gain necessary experience and competence. Doing everything makes you feel indispensable. The desire to be indispensable often hinders effectiveness. No one is irreplaceable. Embracing reality rather than striving for indispensability benefits both individuals and organizations. We want admiration, respect, or pity. Some resist delegation to maintain an image of hard work and dedication. This ego-driven approach undermines productivity and fosters unhealthy work habits. We don't understand the situation. Sometimes, lack of information about a task leads to hesitation in delegating. Seeking clarity and understanding the task's requirements can guide effective delegation practices. Strategies for effective delegation. Consider the following strategies to improve delegation practices. Select the best person for the job. Effective delegation hinges on choosing the right individual or team. Cost doesn't always correlate with quality. Machiavelli's insight into the prince underscores this. Good soldiers, not just resources, ensure success. Similarly, in sports and business, consistently successful teams owe their achievements to skilled personnel choices. Provide adequate training and tools. Delegates need proper training and resources to succeed. Investing in their development enhances task performance and overall productivity. Communicate clearly. Clearly define delegated tasks, including expectations and parameters. Miscommunication leads to confusion and inefficiency. Understand different delegation styles, from minimal involvement to full autonomy, as outlined by management expert Ross Weber. Acknowledge contributions. Recognize and reward those who perform delegated tasks well. Acknowledgement fosters motivation and encourages future success. Empower others. Avoid assigning menial or trivial tasks. Meaningful responsibilities cultivate cooperation and engagement. For instance, educators should assign relevant tasks that foster collaboration rather than burdening students with unnecessary work. Effective delegation and the role of secretaries. 1. Make tasks worthy of time and effort. When assigning someone a task, make sure it is worthy of their time and effort. Just like you, they value their time and energy. Provide the necessary support to get the job done in the easiest way possible without sacrificing quality. This approach increases your chances of success as a delegator. 2. Put an end to reverse delegation. When you assign someone a task, ensure it doesn't come back to you like a boomerang. Tolerating reverse delegation means you aren't truly delegating. If someone tries to drop a problem back in your lap, tell them, "I gave you this job because I wanted to see how you would handle it." If they still wish to discuss it with you, ask them to think of several solutions, put them in writing, and choose what they believe is the best one. This will enhance their decision-making skills and reduce the time you spend consulting with them. Once they have formulated solutions, you have a basis for an effective discussion. 3. Delegate the right to be different and wrong. Just because someone doesn't do the job your way doesn't mean they are any less capable. We would find it odd if a coach insisted a star left-handed quarterback throw with his right hand just because the coach was right-handed. Similarly, mistakes are part of the learning process and should be expected and tolerated as long as people are willing to learn from them. It's better to have people discuss their successes and quietly tolerate intelligent mistakes. 4. Realize delegation doesn't free you from responsibility. The classic illustration of this concept is the sign on Harry Truman's desk saying, "The buck stops here." Even though you assign the job to someone else, you do not transfer your responsibility for ensuring it gets done. After World War II, this concept was applied in the war crimes trials. High-level leaders were tried, imprisoned, and executed for atrocities committed by subordinates, even if it couldn't be proven they had ordered them. Those with final authority are ultimately responsible. 5. Assign tasks by requesting rather than ordering. In a free society, everyone has a choice. Others can either do the job you want or refuse. We all like to think of ourselves as worthy of respect and courtesy. Consequently, how you assign tasks is often as important as what you assign. There's a big difference between, "Mary, can you wrap up the Hobart report this week?" and "Mary, wrap up the Hobart report this week." Courtesy and respect are contagious. In delegating, a little tact goes a long way. 6. Specify conditions for satisfactory performance at the outset. Have you ever given someone a job only to remark later, "This isn't what I wanted at all"? This can usually be avoided by initially explaining what you want done, how you want it done, and when you want it done. It may also help to specify subgoals or request progress reports on long-term assignments. Explaining the task's importance, usefulness, and necessity can also motivate those who have to do it. 7. Follow up. As long as you are responsible for a task, ensure it's carried out. The final step in delegation is to check on the performance of the work. Habitually delegating without following up invites problems. Follow-up questions to ask are, who did the job? How was it done? Was the work satisfactory? And what can be done to do the job faster, easier, and better in the future? Skillful delegation can give you more time to devote to your important tasks, hobbies, or whatever, leading to a less hassled life and improved relationships. Such a small initial investment of time can give you a great payoff. How your secretary can help you work less and accomplish more. A discussion of delegation wouldn't be complete without touching on secretaries. If you talk to people who make things happen, be it in business, government, or elsewhere, they often attribute a large amount of their success to the effective use of secretaries and administrative assistants. Competent, trustworthy secretaries are worth their weight in gold. Unfortunately, many underestimate the true potential of secretaries, viewing them as mindless individuals who only type letters or file documents. This attitude wastes human talent. The role of a good secretary. 1. Organization. A good secretary can learn your principles of organization and ensure you stay organized. They can keep your desk clean and prioritize your to-do list. 2. Routine tasks. Routine correspondence and decision-making can be delegated to your secretary. This frees you to work on non-routine and non-recurring problems. 3. Appointment management. Your secretary can manage your schedule and act as a buffer, screening visitors and calls, allowing you to work uninterrupted on important tasks. 4. Mail screening. A well-informed secretary can reduce your reading time by screening your mail and highlighting items worthy of attention. 5. Goodwill ambassador. A personable secretary can serve as your ambassador of goodwill, reminding you to acknowledge subordinates and customers on special occasions. 6. Substantive assistance. An intelligent and informed secretary can assist in the substantive part of your work, providing ideas, gathering necessary information, and serving as a sounding board. Guidelines for secretarial effectiveness. 1. Hire the best. Get an alert, bright, educated person who is worthy of your time and trust. Consider hiring a talented, ambitious person and providing necessary training. 2. Team member. Your secretary is a key team member. Never underestimate the power of a good secretary. 3. Inform and involve. Keep your secretary informed of your goals, priorities, and aspirations. Ask for ideas and input. 4. Respect their time. Don't waste your secretary's time by making them wait while you search for documents or assign needless tasks. 5. Delegate authority. Give your secretary the authority to make decisions and solve problems. Start with small tasks and gradually increase complexity. 6. Support and recognize. Provide all the support, recognition, respect, and salary you can. A first-class secretary can significantly enhance your effectiveness. Chapter 10 Beyond Barriers. Mastering Open Communications. If only everyone talked the way we do in my household. If only everyone, talked, the way we do, right? It would be so much, easier. Understand, right? Robert? Chapter 10 Beyond Barriers. Mastering Open Communications. If only everyone talked the way we do in my household. If only everyone, talked, the way we do, right? It would be so much, easier. Understand, right? Robert Nordell. Communication is often the weakest link when working with others. In the past century, we've achieved superhuman technical advances in rapid and widespread communication. We live in a society where information bombards us continually. Yet despite this torrent of messages, our ability to convey what we truly mean seems to have stagnated. The endless capacity for people to misunderstand each other makes our jobs and lives unnecessarily challenging. Consider this hypothetical example of formal communication within an organization. A colonel issued this directive to the executive officer. Tomorrow evening at approximately 2000 hours, Halley's Comet will be visible in this area, an event which occurs only once every 75 years. Have the men fall out in the battalion area in fatigues, and I will explain this rare phenomenon to them. In case of rain, we will not be able to see anything, so assemble the men in the theater and I will show films of it. Executive officer to the company commander. By order of the colonel, tomorrow at 2000 hours, Halley's Comet will appear above the battalion area. If it rains, assemble the men in fatigues and march to the theater where this rare phenomenon, which occurs once every 75 years, will take place. Company commander to lieutenant. By order of the colonel, assemble in fatigues at 2000 hours tomorrow evening. The phenomenal Halley's Comet will appear in the theater. If it rains in the battalion area, the colonel will issue another order, something which occurs once every 75 years. Lieutenant to sergeant. Tomorrow at 2000 hours, the colonel will appear in the theater with Halley's Comet, something which happens every 75 years. If it rains, the colonel will order the comet into the battalion area. Sergeant to squad. When it rains tomorrow at 2000 hours, the phenomenal 75-year-old General Halley, accompanied by the colonel, will drive his Comet through the battalion area in his fatigues. Miscommunications like the above happen every hour of every day in every type of organization imaginable. Whenever I share this example in seminars, many respond candidly with, "That sounds like where I work." The problem of communication breakdowns may never be completely solved, but it isn't entirely hopeless either. Most of us do little to improve our ability to understand and be understood because we simply take communication for granted. Most people assume themselves to be at least good communicators and blame others for not communicating well. What an illusion! With an understanding of some basic concepts of communication, we can begin to recognize common ways that faulty communication occurs. The first step toward resolving any problem is to recognize it. One fundamental concept is as we perceive, so we communicate. Our ability to communicate is intertwined with our perceptions and thought processes. As Lister Sinclair noted, we start speaking as we think but end up thinking as we speak. No one can fully understand beyond their own experiences. Someone might say, "I know just how you feel," but the truth is no one can completely understand another's feelings because no two people have identical experiences. Your experiences, senses, and thinking are uniquely yours. This significant difference in experience and perception greatly hampers our ability to communicate. Our perceptions are also influenced by our needs. People tend to see what they want to see. As David Berlow said, "Seek and ye shall find, whether it is there or not." If you believe the person you are speaking to is hostile, friendly, dull, or any other trait, you will tend to perceive them that way. Poor children perceive a quarter as larger than affluent children do. When we meet someone we perceive as important, we overestimate their height. Therefore, our ability to accurately perceive reality and communicate it is greatly distorted by our needs. In addition to being limited by our experiences and perceptions, our ability to communicate is constrained by our capacity to encode or decode meanings into symbols. What we experience cannot be directly transmitted, it must be symbolically communicated. Every form of communication involves a symbolic process where something else stands for what we truly intend to convey. For example, someone buying a Rolls-Royce and parking it in their driveway symbolizes wealth. Another person frowning symbolizes displeasure. Saying, "I love you," symbolizes affection for someone else. As children, we might have learned the phrase, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me." This teaches us that words themselves are harmless symbols. But do we really react to words as mere symbols? Consider the case of a 26-year-old man who, as a guest at his father-in-law's farm for dinner, was served what he believed was lamb. After dinner, his father-in-law told him it was grilled dog. According to the Associated Press, upon hearing this, the young man proceeded to strangle 40 chickens, threatened to kill everyone in the house, cut the throats of 3 mules and 3 cows, break 1,200 eggs, and set the farmhouse and truck on fire. It wasn't consuming dog meat itself that triggered this rampage, it was the message conveyed that caused him to react so drastically. As S.I. Hayakawa pointed out, we live in two worlds, the world of first-hand experience, extensional world, and the world of verbal descriptions, intentional world. When we react to verbal descriptions as if they were reality, we often go astray. The intentional orientation. When we behave intentionally, we react to the verbal world as if it were the real world. For instance, if I blindfolded you and gave you cold spaghetti, claiming it was worms, you might become ill. However, once you realize it's just cold spaghetti, my words wouldn't matter as much. Behaving extensionally means checking our experiences against reality rather than blindly accepting verbal descriptions. Behaving intentionally can waste time and energy over imagined issues. Relying on symbolic maps without checking reality causes unnecessary grief. An example from an advertisement illustrates this. A man lived by the road, selling hot dogs without a radio or newspaper. He put up a sign and sold well. When his son warned of a depression, he reduced orders, stopped advertising, and sales plummeted. Words led to actions based on a misperception of reality. The one-word, one-definition fallacy. We assume words mean the same to others as they do to us. The 500 most common English words have over 14,000 dictionary definitions, causing meaning to often fail. For instance, a dry cleaner's sign offers prompt attention for dropped pants. A king tut visitors' shock over king's organs led to merriment over pianos. The either-or trap. Language structure simplifies complex ideas as true-false or right-wrong. This leads to poor communication, missing nuances. Dictators, which hunts, sports, and courts illustrate, and Bertrand Russell warns against final certainty. The "I've said it all" myth. Overconfident, people miss points in argument, e.g., Sachs's blind scholar's elephant. Humorists play on language flaws as drivers' excuses for collisions. Bad directions blamed. Confusing inferences with reality. Assuming, misinterpreting, act on it. Stop and consider it to live. Consequences, drawing conclusions, act. Unfortunately, the nature of our language doesn't necessarily force us to distinguish between statements of inference and statements of observation. All too often, we jump to erroneous conclusions based on vague or incomplete information. Alfred Korzybski, the father of general semantics, provided the following humorous tale of individuals who allowed their inferences to lead them to erroneous conclusions. In a railroad compartment, an American grandmother with her young and attractive granddaughter, a Romanian officer, and a Nazi officer were the only occupants. The train was passing through a dark tunnel, and all that was heard was a loud kiss and a vigorous slap. After the train emerged from the tunnel, nobody spoke, but the grandmother was saying to herself, "What a fine girl I have raised. She will take care of herself. I am proud of her." The granddaughter was saying to herself, "Well, grandmother is old enough not to mind a little kiss. Besides, the fellows are nice. I am surprised what a hard wallop grandmother has." The Nazi officer was meditating, "How clever those Romanians are. They steal a kiss and have the other fellow slapped." Once we pigeonhole someone or get pigeonholed, the evaluation, be it ever so false, tends to stick. William Haney calls such a practice hardening of the categories. All common categories have their particular images associated with them. Each of us, with our own personal biases, forms opinions of others based on stereotyping. We all laugh at Archie Bunker, but every man is, in some sense, at least equally biased. Our culture and educational system teach us to label and stereotype. Grouping people and things according to similarity can have positive value. However, being conscious only of similarities neglects the differences that exist in all of us. Everyone stereotypes, but no one likes to be stereotyped. Stop for a moment and write down the following things: your sex, your age, your race, your ethnic background, your religion, your education, your occupation, your marital status, your political affiliation, the region based on stereotyping. We all laugh at Archie Bunker, but every man is, in some sense, at least equally biased. Our culture and educational system teach us to label and stereotype. Grouping people and things according to similarity can have positive value. However, being conscious only of similarities neglects the differences that exist in all of us. Everyone stereotypes, but no one likes to be stereotyped. Stop for a moment and write down the following things: your sex, your age, your race, your ethnic background, your religion, your education, your occupation, your marital status, your political affiliation, the region of the country you come from, your height, and your weight. Take a moment to consider the stereotype labels that are attributed to those traits you have listed. Of course, many, if not all, of the stereotypic patterns don't apply to you. But you can believe that many people who know you believe the traits do indeed apply to you. To summarize, stereotyping, the unawareness of our inferences, the belief in and craving for total certainty, either-or thinking, the one-word, one-meaning fallacy, and confusing symbols with the reality they represent are some of the common ways in which communication breaks down. Add to this the fact that most of us blame each other for communication failures, and it becomes obvious why misunderstandings are so prevalent. Strategies that will make you a better communicator. All of us are far from perfect communicators, but some of us are farther away from perfection than others. Even if you were a perfect communicator, whatever that might be, you would still find yourself beset with communication problems due to the fact that you would have to deal with all us imperfect communicators. Acknowledging and practicing the following guidelines will help make you a more effective communicator. Recognize the inadequacy of communication. By taking communication for granted, we only increase the chances of greater misunderstanding. Communication seems simple because we have been doing it longer than we can remember. However, doing it a long time and doing it well are not the same things. It's a complicated, symbolic, abstract process with an unlimited number of things that can go wrong, and usually do. As Emerson wrote, it is a luxury to be understood. Communication may appear inadequate, but what's our choice? For better or worse, it's all we've got. We simply have to be content with it while recognizing the fact that none of us will ever be totally understood. Get extensional in your thinking. Remember that words are only symbols for reality in much the same way that maps represent territories. Frequently, things are not what they appear to be. Classic examples of this are statements we hear today about the salaries of professional athletes. We are quoted the current salary of a highly paid baseball player, and someone remarks, "Gee whiz. Babe Ruth only made $80,000 a year in his heyday." Of course, when you take into account the income taxes today's player pays and deflate his salary to account for the shrinking of the dollar since Ruth's playing days, you find that Ruth actually had a great deal more purchasing power than today's stars. If you doubt the map, it always pays to check the territory. Such a practice can save you a great deal of time and energy. Listen and look for total meaning in someone's message. Don't just listen for words. They may not mean the same to you as they do to the other person. Look for gestures, expressions, the sender's posture, and tone of voice. Likewise, be conscious of these things when you are the sender. Remember that it's not what you say but how you say it that really communicates your feelings. Consider the source. Whenever evaluating a message, who said it is usually at least as important as what is said. The better you know your communicator, the more accurately you will be able to assess the message and his motives for sending it. That sounds like an obvious recommendation, but it's one that is all too often ignored. For example, a colleague may openly criticize your work when the actual problem is that he feels threatened that your potential success will make him look bad. The local computer or photocopy sales representative may tell you that you need their latest in hardware when your present machines have you drowning in clutter and information overload. Or your stockbroker may incessantly call you with hot tips. Why shouldn't he? His commission is based on transactions. It's a good rule of thumb to remember that people will tend to tell you what they want you to hear. And what they want you to hear isn't always in your own best interest. Tailor your message to your audience. Choose words, concepts, and ideas that they can relate to based on their background and knowledge. How well you do this is fundamental to getting your message across. Ask questions. Many of us are reluctant to ask questions of someone when we aren't sure what the person means. This is usually born out of our fear of appearing stupid. However, a lot of confusion can be nipped in the bud by simply asking someone to repeat or rephrase his statement. If you think you understand but want to be sure, paraphrase the message and let the sender verify that you do, in fact, understand his point. If someone refuses to tolerate intelligent questions, he may not be terribly certain of what he is saying. Which brings us to our next recommendation. Chapter 11. Dynamic Duos, the Art of Working Hand in Hand. Know what you're talking about. The ability of people to pass comments, ideas, and judgments on things that they are ignorant of or don't have the slightest understanding of abounds daily. Someone participating in a national poll was recently asked, "What do you think about cyclamates?" Her response was, "I think any two cyclamates who live together should get married." You can save yourself and others a lot of future headaches by taking the time to get your facts straight and know something about what you are communicating about. Be specific. Don't beat around the bush by speaking in vague generalities. If you make a general statement, have something specific to illustrate your point. Don't say, "Foghorn is doing a lousy job as division sales manager." Instead, say, "Foghorn's department has had high turnover, high absenteeism, and a poor track record on sales ever since he took over last year," and have the facts to back it up. Communicate in simple, everyday language. The way we tend to assess someone's intelligence on the basis of the number of big words he uses never ceases to amaze me. To be sure, many professional and technical terms are work-savers that allow professionals to communicate more rapidly with each other. However, a great deal of what we read in medical, legal, technical, and academic documents is little more than the old professional snow job game. If you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit. Have you ever tried to read your insurance policies, federal laws that govern you, or the act of sale for your house? Good luck. The purpose of a great deal of the jargon is to protect the future of experts rather than the consumer. Here's something you can have fun with. It's called the Systematic Buzz Phrase Projector and has been around for some time. It is believed to have originated in the Royal Canadian Air Force and consists of the following 3 columns of buzzwords: integrated, management, options, total organizational, flexibility, systematized, monitored, capability, parallel, reciprocal, mobility, functional, digital programming, responsive, logic, concept, optical, transitional, time phase, synchronized, compatible, balanced, incremental, hardware, contingency, herd generation, projection. With these, you're equipped to formulate your own buzzwords, designed to impress and confuse all you know. Just think of 3 digits at random, say 5, 8, 4, look up the corresponding buzzwords and presto. You now have responsive third-generation programming. Eat your heart out, IBM. The only problem with such communication is that it is mostly non-communication, dealing with disruptive personalities. At work, the moralist is easy to identify. He's the one who tells you how to behave, how to dress, how to keep your desk, whom to associate with both on and off the job, and how to do your job. He is absolutely convinced about the righteousness of his convictions, so the idea of live and let live is totally off his map. Most intelligent people are insulted by moralists. The subtle put-down is, you aren't capable of making your own decisions, so I will make them for you. And if you don't follow my absolutely flawless advice, shame on you. The martyr. Martyrs manipulate others by setting themselves up as sacrificial lambs. Like the moralist, the martyr's primary weapon is guilt. The difference is that the moralist tells you to feel guilty, whereas the martyr wields guilt covertly. By word or deed, the martyr lets you know that he has sacrificed his own needs for your benefit and that you are a selfish, inconsiderate slob if you won't do what he wants you to do. As a hypothetical example of martyrdom in action, let's assume that you and I meet in a bookstore where you happen to be looking at this book and are trying to decide whether or not to buy it. After looking it over, you decide you would rather spend your money elsewhere and put the book back on the shelf. Assuming the role of a martyr, I would look terribly downtrodden and say to you, "That's okay, you don't have to buy it. Forget that I sacrificed the prime of my life to help people like you. Forget my poor eyesight that resulted from poring over the manuscript. You just don't understand how tough it is to write a book. Maybe someday when you write a book of your own, you'll know the agony of it all. Then you'll know how it feels to get rejections from publishers and flack from editors. Go ahead and put the book down. Forget about me." Of course, in choosing to play the role of a martyr, I left out a few details. First, I wrote the book because I wanted to. Second, I had a ball writing it. And third, it's a profit-making venture on the part of the publisher and myself. Despite their cries of sacrifice, martyrs are the most selfish persons of all. Few of us can enjoy the benefits of someone else's self-denial. Of course, the martyr isn't really sacrificing. He's getting some sort of perverse pleasure from playing the sacrificial lamb game with you. Once you are aware of his game, you tend to ignore him and his cries of agony. Why shouldn't you? To pay attention to him is a needless waste of your time. The perfectionist. Perfectionism and its problems were discussed earlier. Have you ever known anyone who said, "I'm a perfectionist in everything I do"? Many of us believe that such a philosophy is the key to effective living, but such is not the case. More often than not, the perfectionist wastes a great deal of his time and energy, and, if you aren't careful, he will waste yours too. If you make the mistake of working with a perfectionist, you will frequently find yourself spending 90% of your time to get a 1% increase in results. I have 3 friends who spent over a year writing a 3,000-word article. That's a rate of about 3 words per person per day. One of them, a self-proclaimed perfectionist, kept rewriting, reviewing, and critiquing the article and insisting his co-authors do the same. Despite all of their efforts at perfection, the article has yet to be published and has been rejected on several occasions. Many people who fancy themselves as perfectionists are wheel spinners who really accomplish little or nothing. As Nicholas Chamfort said, bachelors' wives and old maids' children are always perfect. The trivia generator. The trivia generator keeps himself busy by keeping everyone else busy. In fact, busy work for you and himself is his only goal. He is the classic victim of the activity means productivity myth. No one has ever bothered to tell him that jumping around and splashing in the water doesn't mean you're swimming. It's tough enough to be effective without the needless harassment of a make-work artist. Consequently, those who create superfluous tasks are very easy to dislike and can create a great deal of needless conflict. The short fuse. The short fuse is the guy who reacts excessively and too quickly without stopping to reflect on a situation that he is confronted with. As a result, he often complicates problems or creates unnecessary conflicts. To the short fuse, every new problem is one of paramount urgency and importance. He is very high-strung, intense, and quick to lose his temper. Because he lacks perspective, the short fuse spends most of his time solving unnecessary problems that he creates for himself and everyone else. A department manager named Ben created a great deal of havoc with his steno pool. He decided one day that the stenos were taking 5 minutes too many on their coffee breaks and were wasting too much time talking with each other. He started spot-checking coffee breaks and severely reprimanded several stenos for what he termed excessive chatter. As a result, the stenographers got together and formed a work slowdown. They were very precise about their coffee breaks, cut the conversation to a minimum, and spent 50% of their time looking busy. Morale in the steno pool declined, absenteeism increased, and several stenos found jobs elsewhere. A clerical bottleneck was created, and it was Ben's responsibility to solve it. He couldn't, and he was replaced. The bragger. Muhammad Ali has made a fortune by marketing himself to the public as a bragger. However, unless you want people to pay money to see you get your face reshaped, such a strategy will not likely work for you. "Mine is better than yours" is the motto of the bragger, and he takes pains to remind you of it at every opportunity. With absolutely no encouragement, he will tell you about his new home, his expensive car, his great job, or all the women who are after him. In truth, most braggers believe that theirs isn't as good as yours, so they attempt to impress you by exaggerating their success. The put-down artist. A special case of put-down artistry is putting oneself down, the kick-me player. He will tell you about how stupid or irresponsible he is and then follow through with inaction to back up his statements. Consequently, he gets kicked out of a job, out of school, or out of his marriage. More frequently, however, the put-down artist aims his arrows of destruction at you and others. If you don't take pains to ignore these guys, they can waste a lot of your time and energy in needless bickering. The con man. Although they come in various shapes and sizes, all con men show one thing: a lack of integrity. They take great pains to deceive others for their own personal benefit. A guy who doesn't come off straight is most easily recognized by his ability to consistently say one thing and do another. Your boss tells you he always likes to promote from within but fills vacant positions with outsiders. Your colleague tells you that nothing of consequence is on the agenda of the budget committee's meeting and there is no need to attend. Later you find they killed off your pet project so he could get the funding for his. Hypocrisy is the modus operandi of the con man. Dealing with a con artist can be very tricky and time-consuming, especially when you don't recognize him as such. Conclusion. There you have the disruptive dozen. To be sure, you will always be plagued by them to some degree. However, by controlling your own behavior, you can ensure that the disruptive dozen will have a minimum impact on your own effectiveness. Coping with an abrasive personality is best handled by refusing to become one. Guidelines for resolving and avoiding conflict situations. 1. Make the effort to be an effective communicator. More often than not, conflicts are created because the parties involved don't understand each other's true meaning. Many of the recommendations in the preceding chapter will help prevent unnecessary conflicts by ensuring good communication. 2. Replace defensiveness with openness. If you stop and think about it, all of the disruptive dozen are basically defensive personalities. People behave in these fashions when they feel threatened. Consequently, the best way to discourage such behavior is to appear or behave in a non-threatening manner. The more receptive and open you are to the opinions and feelings of others, the less inclined they will be to go on the defensive. 3. Present necessary criticism in a spirit of kindness, helpfulness, and tact. On occasion, you will be faced with the necessity of pointing out mistakes or constructively critiquing the work or behavior of someone else. If improperly handled, this can be another fertile ground for needless conflict. Here are some ideas aimed at minimizing the chances of such a needless conflict. Choose a proper time and place, preferably a private one. Never publicly criticize or ridicule someone. You will only put them on the defensive, and defensive people don't listen. Start by paying the person a sincere compliment for something positive they have done. If you give only criticism, they will feel unappreciated and will likely be reluctant to pay attention to what you have to say. Focus on the behavior that needs correcting, not on the person. To the extent that you can indirectly call attention to the problem, do so. Be specific when discussing the problem. Telling Jack that his report is all. Chapter 12. Summing up. Are you now working smart? Queer thing, but we think every other man's job is easier than our own. And the better he does it, the easier it looks.
עידן פילפוץ.
The purpose of this book has been to give you some simple, practical techniques for making the most of your time and energy. Those who work smart are not loafers looking for the easy way out. Rather, they are people who make the most of their lives and thus create greater personal satisfaction for themselves and those they come into contact with. They are effective people. These individuals possess no grand and glorious abilities that set them apart from the rest of humankind. They simply realize that the application of a few powerful ideas makes for an easier, more satisfying, and productive life. In this final chapter, I would like to summarize some of the major ingredients necessary to increase your effectiveness. Much of this review is in the form of a series of questions. I hope you will frequently refer to this chapter, especially if you find your effectiveness is less than satisfactory. Do you focus on results? Effective people know it's more important to do the right job than to do the job right. Are you willing to invest the work to get what you want out of life? Sometimes effectiveness means investing time and effort in projects whose rewards are in the distant future. However, effective people never underestimate the importance of enjoying today. While they are future-oriented, they also have the common sense to realize that there is no inherent incompatibility between enjoying today and building for a better tomorrow. The two ideas are viewed as complementary. Have you searched your brain for any work tapes you may be playing? Ernest Hemingway once remarked, "The most essential gift for a good writer is a built-in, shock-proof shit detector." It's also a necessary talent for those who want to avoid frustration and fatigue. Many of the dogmatic messages we have been taught about work are partial truths at best. When someone successful tells you how hard they worked, realize that one seldom asks a failure how hard they worked. Sweat, activity, efficiency, hours, and pressure are not linked to accomplishment in a predictable fashion. Every job is unique and will require various combinations of blood, sweat, tears, time, and intelligence to be successfully completed. Remember that effectiveness is more of an art than a science, and constantly practice refining your skills. Have you set your own goals and accepted total responsibility for achieving them? Goals are necessary for your happiness as well as being the vehicle that enables you to concentrate your time and energy most effectively. Set goals that are specific, challenging, realistic, and measurable. Be sure your goals are compatible with each other and give each one a deadline. Put your goals in writing, but consider them subject to revision and change. When you set goals, set them on a lifetime, intermediate, and daily basis. After setting goals, rank them in order of importance and tackle the top priority projects first. Remember the 80-20th rule. 80% of your effectiveness comes from achieving 20% of your goals. Do you try to solve problems in a simple, rational way? Effective people appear to live a carefree, charmed existence, but the fact is that they, like everyone else, encounter their share of life's problems. The difference between these people and others is that effective people realize that the number and severity of problems they have aren't as important as the way in which they are handled. They realize that becoming emotionally involved in a problem only lessens the chances of finding a satisfactory solution. Do you distinguish between urgent problems and important ones? The tyranny of the urgent can wreck your effectiveness if allowed to reign unchecked. Remember, urgent things are seldom important, and important things are seldom urgent. Have you accounted for your use of time? Most time use is habitual, and we don't know how we spend our time until we try to keep track of it. Keeping a time log periodically can help us uncover and eliminate unproductive habits. Do you keep a loose schedule? A good rule of thumb is never to schedule more than 50% of your day. Murphy's Law can play havoc with tight schedules. Expect the unexpected. Schedule the most important tasks for prime time, the time when you work your best. Also, set aside a period each day for reflecting on who you are and what your goals are. Look for ways to make multiple uses of time that has already been committed. Do you know what not to do? Effectiveness doesn't result from doing more. It's the product of doing less better. The inability to say no is a great effectiveness killer. When you find it necessary to say no, do it promptly and politely to avoid raising unnecessary expectations. Don't feel you have to have a reason every time you refuse someone's request, but provide one if you deem it appropriate. Before tackling a job, do you ask yourself, is this the best use of my time and energy? If the answer is yes, equip yourself with the proper tools and complete the task. If the answer is no, get someone else to do the job or don't do it. Are you a workaholic? Accept the fact that time away from the job is a necessary stimulus to greater creativity, satisfaction, and effectiveness on the job. Do you have a sound self-image? Do you know who you are? Recognize and accept your limitations and build on your strengths. You're better than you think. Accept yourself unconditionally. It's the key to peace of mind, and a peaceful mind is a more effective one. The majority of people strive to improve their image in the eyes of others, but the effective individual realizes that other-directedness isn't nearly as important as inner-directedness. The very essence of an effective person is doing things that make them feel good about themselves. Do you put your own needs first? You can't help the poor by becoming one of them. Effective people are positively selfish. They refuse to be martyrs or self-sacrificers and give of themselves only when they have something meaningful to give. As a result, their help tends to be more abundant, effective, and oriented toward helping others to help themselves. Do you accept the responsibility for your own feelings? Do you believe that you, like everyone else, make your own sunshine? Have you said goodbye to the time and energy-robbing emotions of guilt and worry? When you feel anger, have you learned to use it positively to move you toward your goals? An antidote to excessive anger is a well-developed sense of humor. Take your work seriously, but not yourself. When things get hectic, back off, look at things in perspective, and learn to laugh at yourself. 99% of the time, things seem more important in the present than they actually are. Do you build on your strengths? If you perform work that allows you to build on your strengths, you will perform with relative ease. Take a relaxed approach toward your work. Remember that how well you work is far more important than how hard you work. Are you aware that being a perfectionist can cripple effectiveness? Somerset Maugham wrote, "Only a mediocre person is always at his best." Striving for perfection usually costs us more time than the increased benefits justify. Sometimes perfection is essential, and on those occasions, do your best to deliver it. However, most of the time, it isn't necessary and wastes time that could be better spent elsewhere. Do you have the courage to act and commit yourself to calculated risk-taking? As William Lyon Phelps wrote, "The fear of life is the favorite disease of the 20th century." The courage to take calculated risks is essential. The only other alternative is a wasted life of inaction, immobilization, and servitude to your fears. Better to feel sorry for the things you've done than to waste your life regretting missed opportunities. Our culture is very security-oriented, and caution is the norm. However, to make the most of your life, you must accept the fact that the only real security is that which comes from within. Despite what you have been told by your parents, teachers, spouse, clergyman, Uncle Sam, employer, or insurance companies, no one ever gives anyone security. Life is a gamble from the cradle to the grave, and the refusal to take risks makes for a life of mediocrity at best. Measure success in terms of what you gain, not what you lose. You will have your share of adversities, but these are experiences to learn from and not final acts. Mike Todd once remarked, "I've been broke many times, but I've never been poor." 80% of achievement is having the guts to try. Clementine Paddleford said, "Never grow a wishbone, daughter, where your backbone ought to be." Have you bid farewell to procrastination? All of us will always be procrastinators to some degree. The important thing is to recognize it as a useless burden that must be minimized if you want to get things done with less effort. Are you a frequent and skillful delegator? Smart workers aren't plagued by do-it-yourself-itis. They concentrate their time and energy on performing the important tasks that only they can do. Anything that can be delegated is delegated. Realize that there are many irrational temptations to avoid delegating and work to overcome them. Accept the fact that others will make mistakes and do the job differently. Work at developing your delegating skills. It's quite an art. Is your secretary given responsible, challenging assignments in addition to routine clerical tasks? An intelligent, competent secretary is a priceless aid to effectiveness. Get a good one and seek to develop their greatest potential. Many successful executives attribute much of their rise and fortune to the aid of competent and loyal secretaries who help them climb the ladder of success. Keep them informed and reward their effectiveness with the support, salary, and recognition they deserve. Do you make a conscious effort to improve your ability to communicate? All too often, the spoken, printed, or written word is woefully inadequate, but it is all that we have. Keep in mind that all communication is a symbolic process that is interwoven with our thought process. We tend to start out speaking as we think, but usually end up thinking as we speak. When communicating with others, look for total meaning and be aware of the common types of communication breakdowns. Consider the source as much as the message. If you don't understand someone, don't be embarrassed to ask questions. Communicate your thoughts in specific, simple, everyday language. Do you attempt to work with people rather than against them? Bertrand Russell once stated, "The only thing that will redeem mankind is cooperation." Some conflicts are necessary, but most are needless wastes of time caused by poor communication. Effective people resolve conflicts in a friendly, non-threatening manner. They are slow to criticize others and remain cool and unthreatened in the face of criticism. Their inner security and ability to focus on the important things in life provide them with the ability to avoid, resolve, and tolerate needless conflicts. Smart workers make life pleasant for themselves and those around them. They are perennial optimists in both word and deed. Because they like themselves, they find it easy to tolerate, accept, and love the world and those around them. Have you taken steps to minimize interruptions? All of us are subject to meetings, visitors, and telephone calls which can derail our best-laid plans if we allow them to. Avoid meetings like the plague. Don't be a habitual joiner. If you have to call a meeting, be sure it's a necessary one with a specific purpose and agenda. Time spent planning meetings and focusing on goals during the meeting can greatly reduce their time and cost. Shield yourself from drop-in visitors. Schedule visiting hours and see drop-in visitors only in cases of emergency. Arrange appointments for necessary visitors and have others screened. Use the telephone intelligently to save time rather than waste it. Know who your frequent callers are. Receive and make telephone calls at specified times. When you wish to work uninterrupted, have your calls taken by your secretary, an answering service, or a telephone answering machine. Get yourself a hideaway for serious, lengthy periods of uninterrupted work. Choose a quiet spot and let your whereabouts be known only to a privileged few. Are you controlling and reducing your paperwork or wallowing in it? Paper is here to stay, but you don't have to let it clutter your life and smother your goals. If in doubt, throw it out. Never have it on its way. Never write when a telephone call or face-to-face contact will suffice. Paper is money. When you have to write, do it with clarity, simplicity, and naturalness. The key to being an effective reader is not to read faster but more selectively. Knowing what not to read is far more important than how rapidly you read. Do you enjoy your work? Above all, remember what Senator Hubert Humphrey said, "Life is not to be endured but to be enjoyed." A life of satisfaction and happiness is what we all seek. However, we must have the good sense to realize that happiness doesn't result from inaction but rather from creative absorption. Effective people have an intelligent type of persistence. They realize that most of us waste our time and energy by abandoning our goals too soon. Once these people attach themselves to a dream, they hang on for the ride and enjoy every minute of it. And they also realize, as an anonymous author wrote, "No age or time of life, no position or circumstance, has a monopoly on success. Any age is the right age to start doing." Working smart isn't a fantasy, but a reality within the grasp of all who choose to reach for it. The end of this book can mark the beginning for you, the beginning of a happier and more productive life through better use of your time and energy. I wish you every success.